This is Kim Seo-jun, a 27-year-old natural awakener whose expression tells a story of hardship. Blessed with incredible strength, he's stuck hauling monster corpses to pay off a mysterious family debt. This backbreaking work has been his life for 9 years, but one dream keeps his spirit alive. Wiping away the sweat, he holds on to his one true ambition, to become a pro hunter. Taking a quick break, he reveals his plan to attend a hunter academy, much to his colleagues' surprise. His senior scoffs, reminding him that the era of self-made hunters is long gone. Academies are now essential. Seo-jun listens intently, aware that these institutions are staffed by the best, both active and retired hunters. They offer priceless knowledge, teaching skills that are usually paid for with one's life. Consequently, the system creates a new class of celebrity hunters, adored and celebrated by the public. A vast chasm now separates the academy-trained elite from those left struggling in the dust. But Seo-jun holds a trump card, a triumphant smile spreading across his face as he checks his phone. He proudly reveals his bank balance, $40,000 saved through sheer grit for 1 year of tuition. As he daydreams about his future, a strange notification suddenly appears on his screen. It's a pop-up ad for an institution he's never heard of, the Transcendence Academy. The ad makes grand claims about a universal shift and professors with millennia of experience. It even shows a student testimonial from a supposed 9th-class swordmaster praising the academy. Another review features an old sage who apparently passed his ascension exam thanks to their teaching. The screen floods with more glowing testimonials, promising a life-changing experience for new students. A final, blinding flash from the ad delivers its ultimate, unbelievable promise of power. Seo-jun is left completely dumbfounded, questioning the sanity of the ad he just watched. He dismisses the site, finding the list of professors, Hercules, Merlin, Atlas, too ridiculous to be real. His skepticism wavers as a course by Heaven's great sage on staff techniques piques his curiosity. A tap on the link reveals the professor, an animated, monkey-like sage with a cheerful grin. This sage introduces himself as the legendary Sun Wukong, claiming his Rui staff techniques are applicable to spears. The lecture itself seems surprisingly normal, until the sage decides a live demonstration is in order. On screen, the sage begins his demonstration with a swift, outward deflection of his staff. He follows up by twirling the staff inwards, gathering a visible, crackling energy around it. The demonstration culminates in a single focused pierce that unleashes an overwhelming blast of power. Seo-jun jolts in disbelief, realizing the entire mountain in the background of the video has vanished. He frantically tries to rationalize it as CGI, knowing deep down that such power surpasses even an S-class hunter. A new prompt appears, offering an S-rank skill from the great sage if he registers for the lecture. Seo-jun stares at his screen, a bead of sweat forming as he contemplates the unbelievable offer. He impulsively taps register, only to be blocked by an error and prompted to create an account first. The system then reveals a membership fee calculated by causality before dropping a bombshell price tag of $40,000. He counts the zeros in disbelief, his entire life savings matching the absurd registration fee. Convinced it's a total scam, he dismisses the ridiculous pop-up with a silent curse. Back in reality, his senior approaches, snapping him out of his digital daze with a question about his academy plans. Seo-jun confidently names the prestigious Arc Hunter Academy, putting the strange online encounter behind him. His colleague jokes about his future fame, while Seo-jun promises him a chance to handle the dragons he'll one day hunt. The two share a light-hearted moment, with Seo-jun boasting about the legendary monsters he'll conquer. Seo-jun reflects on a famous quote, viewing his life as a comedy from a distance. But up close, tragedy strikes as a falling monster corpse plummets toward him. The world shatters in a moment of devastating impact. He now believes that to truly laugh, one must first endure immense pain. A doctor reveals the grim truth. His awakener healing has crippled him, tangling nerves with shattered bone. His boss selfishly refused to cover the accident, prioritizing reputation over his employee's life. The only solution is a $40,000 surgery, a price that matches his entire life savings. This forces him to reconsider his entire future. Lying in a hospital bed, he reveals this accident happened years ago, a 9-year-long ordeal. He crushes the envelope from his friend, realizing his academy dream was shattered to pay for that surgery, leaving him with only $3,000. He wonders if he can start over just as a notification pings on his phone. It's a special offer from the mysterious Transcendence Academy, targeting new students. He instantly recognizes the name of the absurd academy from 9 years ago. After that first encounter, he could never find the strange website again. The registration fee is now exactly $3,000, the last of his savings. He connects the dots. The academy always demands everything he has. Smirking, he decides to call their bluff, believing his bank account is empty. The registration is instantly approved, and the physical cash from his envelope vanishes into thin air. A system window officially welcomes him as the newest member of Transcendence Academy. Suddenly, a strange magical energy surges from his phone, engulfing his hand. A tiny chibi-like figure materializes from his phone, greeting him by name. Seo-jun questions his sanity as the miniature being declares itself his new mentor. The tiny figure beams with confidence, presenting itself with a flourish. It stands atop his phone, its glowing purple eyes fixed on the bewildered Seo-jun. Seo-jun deadpans, trying to process the absurd situation unfolding before him. He asks if the creature's name is literally mentor, causing a slight misunderstanding. The being puffs its chest out proudly, confirming its name is indeed mentor. Seo-jun makes a connection to Greek mythology, realizing this is the legendary mentor, teacher of Odysseus. The chibi smugly reveals that the hero Odysseus was its very first student. Mentor's expression turns serious, explaining that the academy teaches students to transcend the limits of their race. Seo-jun finally grasps that this isn't a hunter academy, but something far stranger. The tiny mentor dismisses the comparison, claiming hunters are nothing next to the truly transcended. Still caught up in his old worldview, Seo-jun tries to argue for the power of S-class hunters. Mentor boasts that their instructors could flick a hunter away, then presents Seo-jun with a form. An aptitude test appears on his screen, offering paths to transcendence in fields like combat and medicine. The chibi explains this survey will tailor a course to his specific potential and goals. Urged to be truthful, Seo-jun's hand moves to select his path, but something gives him pause. His finger freezes mid-air, unable to complete the simple action of tapping the screen. Mentor notices his hesitation, peering over his shoulder to see what the issue is. Seo-jun scratches his head in frustration, admitting he's completely stumped by the second question. The second question presents a list of absurd power levels, from splitting mountains to being just shy of godhood. Mentor cheerfully reassures him that this part stumps many, advising him to just be honest about his abilities. The chibi guide runs down the list, but Seo-jun can only shake his head, admitting he can't do any of it. A baffled mentor asks if he can at least pull up a mountain, to which Seo-jun questions the sanity of such a feat. The tiny being is utterly flabbergasted, wondering how someone so weak even qualified for the academy. Despite his weakness, Mentor gives a reassuring wink, promising that once you're in for life. With a chipper little wave, the guide urges him to get back to the rest of the lengthy questionnaire. After what feels like an eternity, a pair of clapping hands signals the successful completion of the test. Seo-jun slumps in exhaustion, completely drained after answering a mind-numbing 108 questions. Mentor reveals the next step is to analyze his profile before recommending the necessary lectures. Mentor thoughtfully considers Seo-jun's preference for spearmanship, suggesting ki cultivation would suit him best. He dismisses the great sage's lecture as far too advanced for someone who can't even uproot mountains. The guide then presents 2 new lecture options for his free pass, taught by legendary figures. Mentor correctly identifies Seo-jun's deep emotional turmoil, which makes him flinch in surprise. Pointing to the screen, the chibi suggests a lecture by instructor Siddhartha Gautama, leaving Seo-jun speechless. His shock turns to disbelief, as Mentor confirms the instructor is indeed the one known as Buddha. The guide explains this famous mentality lecture is offered for free by the benevolent instructor to help struggling souls. A new prompt offers an SSS rank skill, Unwavering Heart, as a reward for completing the course. With a cheerful thumbs up, Mentor cryptically warns that the lecture might feel like it will drive him mad. Before Seo-jun can protest, the tiny guide dematerializes, promising to return after analyzing his profile. Left with no other options, Seo-jun decides to give the bizarre lecture a try. He taps the glowing play button, officially starting his first lesson. The lecture opens with a serene, glowing figure asking a profound philosophical question. Seo-jun stares in awe, thinking the instructor looks like a living, breathing golden statue. The instructor begins his lesson with a mind-bending concept, the non-existence of the self. Seo-jun quickly realizes the lecture is far more complex than he ever imagined. The lesson delves deeper, questioning the very nature of existence without a point of comparison. His mind is transported to a cosmic void as he begins to grasp mentor's warning about the lecture's intensity. A colossal spectral form of the instructor looms over him, revealing that Seo-jun is not just in the world, but is the world itself. The overwhelming revelation pushes Seo-jun to the brink, making him feel like he's losing his mind. A system notification pings, showing his lecture progress is a mere fraction of a percent. The mental toll of the lesson is so great, it feels like his very soul is leaving his body. 1 week later, his doctor is utterly baffled by his miraculous recovery speed. Seo-jun stretches, his body completely healed, leaving the veteran doctor speechless. With a confident smirk, he realizes the unbelievable changes to his body are very real. He credits the mind-bending lecture for his rapid healing, even with only 1.3% progress. As the doctor suggests more rest, Seo-jun can only imagine the power he'll gain at 100%. He happily agrees, now fully convinced that the Transcendence Academy is no scam. Now able to move, he decides to try the next course, a combat lecture by instructor Kyron. He considers the A-rank reward, realizing it's not weak, but that his SSS rank mental skill is just on another level. The lecture begins with a formal introduction from the new instructor, Kyron. He reveals his true form as a centaur, a legendary half-man, half-horse creature. Seo-jun learns this is the famed teacher of nearly every hero in Greek mythology. Kyron's course aims to prepare students for the first steps toward transcendence. Lying in bed, Seo-jun is so used to the absurd that meeting the real Kyron barely phases him. He watches intently as the instructor prepares to reveal the first step to becoming a transcended. But Kyron's calm demeanor suddenly shatters, replaced by a grimace of pure rage. With glowing eyes, the instructor unleashes a furious, intimidating roar through the screen. The sheer intensity of the command makes Seo-jun jolt upright, dropping his phone in shock. The voice echoes with such power it seems to shake the very hospital, leaving Seo-jun terrified. The sheer force of the command leaves Seo-jun's world spinning, his mind completely blank. Knocked clean off his bed, he lands on the floor just as a new notification chimes. The system announces a new daily task, calculated based on his current power level. The suitable task is a superhuman workout, including a 30-kilometer run and 1,000 squats. He stares at the list on his phone, completely baffled by the impossible daily task. He wryly notes the workout is beyond daily difficulty, comparing it to a famous hero's training. This directly contradicts his doctor's orders to rest and avoid overexertion for the next week. He decides to ignore the task for now, but the system immediately blocks him from starting another lecture. Thinking it's a glitch, he tries again with a confident tap, only to be met with the same stubborn message. Error messages flood his vision, making him question how the Academy can possibly know he hasn't completed his physical tasks. Defeated, Seo-jun hangs his head, realizing the Academy's system has him completely cornered. He slumps onto his bed, deciding to just rest for the week and put the impossible training aside. But as he tries to switch lectures, he spots a new detail on the screen that makes him pause. A countdown timer reveals his free pass will expire in just 83 days. The revelation sends him into a panic, forcing him out of the hospital to start his training immediately. He reasons that even a bizarre institution like the Transcendence Academy would have deadlines. Calculating he originally had 90 days, he begins stretching, knowing he can't waste another moment. He realizes that simply watching the lectures isn't enough. He has to truly understand them to make progress. Frustrated, he checks his phone again, seeing his progress is still stuck at a measly 1.3%. Despite watching the mind-bending lecture on repeat for a week, he's barely made a dent in the course. He doubts his ability to complete the lecture within the 83-day time limit. Realizing the free pass is a trial, he begins exercising for the first time in years. He starts with push-ups, recalling his 9-year career hauling monster corpses for pro hunters. A flashback shows him carrying heavy loads, which he considered his daily workout. Confident in his Awakener's physique, he pushes through, completing 300 reps. Feeling accomplished after his warm-up, he checks his phone to see what's next. His pride vanishes when he sees the system has only counted 81 of his push-ups. Utterly baffled, he scratches his head, unable to understand the discrepancy. He gets back into position, determined to figure out why his reps aren't counting. After one slow, perfect push-up, the counter ticks up by a single point, revealing the system's strict standards. He finally understands the system's harsh definition of a proper workout. He struggles through hundreds of push-ups, each one a grueling test of perfect form. The pull-ups are just as unforgiving, with the system refusing to count any imperfect reps. He even hallucinates a version of himself screaming encouragement to get through the sit-ups and squats. The final 30-kilometer run pushes him to his absolute limit, questioning the sanity of the entire ordeal. With the last ounce of his strength, he finally completes the impossible daily task. He collapses in a public park, utterly spent and drawing concerned stares from onlookers. The horrifying realization dawns on him. This is a daily requirement, a fact his instructor seems to find amusing. The next day, back at the hospital, a fellow patient stops in her tracks, shocked by his appearance. She's amazed by his rapid recovery as Seo-jun confidently heads out for another round of training. An elderly patient admires his youthful energy while another grumpily looks on. His attention is caught by a breaking news report about a monster appearing in Seoul. The report reveals a corpse delivery service mistakenly transported a live behemoth into the city. A potential disaster was averted when a lone awakener heroically stepped in to stop the monster. The hero is revealed to be a cadet from a top hunter academy, earning praise from the onlookers. The old woman marvels at the grand deeds of these celebrated heroes. She suddenly remembers Seo-jun is also an awakener, catching him off guard with her question. With stars in her eyes, she asks if he'll one day be a famous TV hero like the one on the news. Seo-jun's expression darkens, knowing the vast gap between himself and those celebrity hunters. The grumpy patient in the wheelchair continues to glare at him from across the room. Seo-jun awkwardly explains that becoming a pro hunter is a one-in-a-million shot, a far cry from the old days. The grumpy patient scoffs, questioning Seo-jun's right to even call himself a student. He tells Seo-jun to give up, since he's not even a cadet and is just exercising on a fool's hope. The man's words trigger a painful memory of Seo-jun's past, urging him not to waste his youth on a fantasy. Seo-jun's expression hardens, a dangerous glint appearing in his eyes. As the old woman objects, Seo-jun's fist tightens, barely containing his fury at the man's condescending advice. The man is stunned when Seo-jun firmly states he'll decide his own path, rejecting the unsolicited counsel. Seo-jun fires back, telling the man to worry about his own life before meddling in his. The sharp retort leaves the grumpy patient utterly speechless, a bead of sweat running down his face. The man leaps up in a rage, shouting that young people should respectfully listen when their elders offer guidance. Seo-jun strides past the stunned man, his resolve now stronger than ever. He internally declares himself a cadet of the Transcendence Academy, where his dream is not impossible. The effects of the lectures have already proven to him that this path is real. Leaving the naysayer behind, he sprints off, vowing to become a hunter no matter what. Elsewhere, a mysterious woman expresses her own deep dissatisfaction with the life of a hunter. She questions the purpose of her academy as she faces down two ferocious, energy-wreathed beasts. With a powerful swing of her glowing sword, she laments their lack of funds and, more importantly, students. She sighs in frustration, her blade finding its mark with brutal efficiency. Standing over the vanquished creatures, she looks more bored than victorious, annoyed by the whole ordeal. The scene cuts away to a quiet apartment building under the night sky, hinting at a new location. Seo-jun collapses onto his bed, finally back in the comfort of his own home. After 2 weeks in the hospital, he's just happy to be back, even if his apartment is small and bare. Lying on his bed, a new wave of determination washes over him as he rests. He gets up, realizing he has about 1 year until the hunter exam to make his dream a reality. His thoughts turn to his finances, wondering just how little he has left to his name. From the outside, his small room looks like a cell, a stark reminder of his current situation. He mutters to himself, accepting the grim reality that he truly has nothing left. But a sudden realization jolts him upright. He completed his impossible daily training. He grabs his phone, hoping that finishing the tasks has finally unlocked the next lecture. A system prompt appears, offering to register him for the next lesson, and his hope soars. His instructor, Chiron, gives a satisfied wink, pleased with his student's progress. The centaur's voice explains Seo-jun is finally strong enough to toddle, making him question his previous weakness. Chiron stands tall, ready to reveal the very first step on the path to becoming a transcended. With a serious expression, the instructor reveals the first lesson is simply to sense. A notification confirms his progress, showing his lecture completion has jumped to 5.7%. The next morning, Seo-jun finds himself back at his old workplace, reflecting on his miraculous recovery. His former boss berates him, but Seo-jun endures it, knowing he's broke and needs the work. He recalls his boss's past negligence, realizing the man's guilt is the only reason he's allowed back. His new living quarters are revealed to be a bleak container-like shack on the worksite. Seo-jun sits alone, trapped in a frustrating cycle, work for money or study for his future. He realizes he's stuck, unable to progress in his studies without completing the grueling daily tasks. To make some progress, he decides to review Chiron's last lecture about the concept of sense. The lecture flashes back, with the instructor explaining the absolute role of the 5 senses in combat. As the lesson lists sight, hearing, and touch, Seo-jun listens intently in his small room. Chiron's voice explains that the normal process of perceiving and reacting is far too slow for a true warrior. The centaur reveals his goal is to teach a method that bypasses this slow, deliberate process. He introduces a new concept, something completely separate from the 5 senses, a hidden ability. Seo-jun's eyes widen as the lecture introduces the idea of a 6th sense. As the word intuition appears, his senior suddenly grabs him from behind to say hello. But Seo-jun instinctively dodges the friendly gesture, leaving both him and his colleague completely stunned. The senior questions how Seo-jun dodged him, wondering if he has eyes in the back of his head. While a tiny Chiron gives a thumbs up, the senior snaps at Seo-jun to stop slacking and get to work. His colleague expresses concern, warning that lifting a 200 kilos load could lead to another injury. Seo-jun just smiles, confidently telling them to load him up, completely unconcerned about the weight. He effortlessly hoists the massive pack, carrying the 200-kilo load as if it were nothing. His co-workers can only watch in stunned silence as he walks away with the impossible weight. The senior, still baffled by Seo-jun's strength, nervously tells the other workers to take a break. Seo-jun feels a strange surge of energy, realizing the work is making him feel even more powerful. Deciding to multitask, he starts doing squats with the massive load, turning his job into his daily training. After a few reps, he pauses to check his phone, curious if the system is counting his on-the-job workout. He stares at his phone in utter disbelief, his eyes wide with a sudden realization. The system reveals that each weighted squat now counts as 3, a game-changing multiplier. He quickly connects the dots. More weight means more effective training and faster progress. A brilliant, almost manic grin spreads across his face as he formulates a new plan. He eagerly offers to carry his co-workers' heavy loads, seeing a golden opportunity. Now loaded with extra weight, he happily combines his job with his daily tasks. He even starts doing push-ups with the monster corpse on his back, accelerating his progress even further. Seo-jun celebrates his genius idea, the perfect way to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Later that night, he collapses onto his bed, completely drained from the brutal yet efficient day. Despite the exhaustion, he smirks, amused by his coworker's shocked face and his own cleverness. Thanks to his clever multitasking, he finishes his daily tasks in record time. He checks his progress, noting he's finished early and has time to spare. He decides against reviewing old lessons, realizing he needs something new to boost his progress. Since paid lectures are out of reach, he scrolls through the free pass options for a new course. A lecture promising the power to uproot mountains catches his eye, taught by an instructor named Xiang Yu. He recognizes the name, connecting it to the legendary hegemon king from Chinese history. He remembers the tales of the warrior's immense power, a figure of legendary strength. Seeing the offer for a free spearmanship skill, he eagerly taps the register button. The new instructor appears, immediately mocking his students with a condescending laugh. Seo-jun flinches, completely unprepared for the instructor's brutally insulting welcome. The hegemon king Xiang Yu smirks, declaring he'll teach Seo-jun and that complicated techniques are for fools. His first and only instruction is to swing a spear until it becomes a part of him. A new system notification promptly appears, assigning his next personal daily task. Seo-jun stares in disbelief at the new requirement. Swing a spear 5,000 times. He kneels on the floor with a dustpan, wondering if that insult was the entire lecture. A tiny, mocking version of the instructor appears on his screen, taunting him to get started. Seo-jun sighs in exhaustion, questioning why every single one of these tasks is a daily ordeal. The next day, a confident woman arrives at the worksite, reassuring her fawning host that everything is in order. Identified as B-Class Hunter Park Seo-yun, she orders a thorough inspection, referencing the recent behemoth incident. The boss nervously agrees, while Seo-jun watches the exchange from the background. His colleagues whisper about their boss's groveling, wondering about the hunter's identity. A co-worker reveals she's the granddaughter of the Sword Star, a name that sends a jolt through Seo-jun. His mind flashes to the legendary Sword Star, Park Min-chul, a man radiating immense power. The story rewinds 100 years to an era when gates first appeared and chaos reigned. Back then, knowledge was scarce and brutal monsters roamed the streets, preying on the innocent. It was a desperate time when humanity's very survival was constantly in question. But a young hero, wreathed in lightning, stepped forward to defend the helpless from a monstrous threat. A terrified child peeks over their mother's shoulder, witnessing the arrival of their savior. This hero was Park Min-chul, an awakener who fought tirelessly in that unforgiving world. He was one of the legendary figures who helped reclaim civilization from the brink of collapse. He was hailed as a true hero, the savior of his world. Though time has passed, the aged Sword Star remains a powerhouse on the global stage. Seo-jun smiles, brushing off the legend as something far removed from his own reality. He gets back to his grueling workout, doing squats with a monster corpse strapped to his back. The B-Class Hunter questions his strange behavior, but the boss dismisses it as a week-long madness. She watches with concern, wondering if he's lost his mind as he continues counting his reps. Seo-jun calls out to his boss, Min-chul, announcing he's finished his set and is dropping off the load. The weary boss simply nods, having grown used to Seo-jun's bizarre new training regimen. Min-chul questions his endurance, but Seo-jun is determined to finish what he started. But as he continues his workout, the eyes of the corpse on his back suddenly snap open. Seo-jun insists his strange training has a purpose, but his boss scoffs at the very idea. The boss sighs, worried Seo-jun will get himself killed, while Seo-jun cheerfully promises to bring more weight. Back in the office, the boss stands amidst a pile of monster parts, looking utterly exhausted by the day's events. As he turns away, the supposedly dead monster behind him begins to stir, its claw twitching with life. Outside, Seo-jun glances back toward the office, a sudden and sharp sense of dread washing over him. The monster erupts in a devastating blast of energy, throwing the unprepared boss across the room. With glowing yellow eyes and bared fangs, the resurrected beast lets out a ferocious roar. Seo-jun watches in sheer terror, screaming out for his boss who is now in mortal danger. The B-Class Hunter, Park Seo-yun, is left speechless, witnessing the sudden and violent attack. She quickly leaves the scene, relieved to have escaped the fawning work leader she clearly despises. The B-Class Hunter glances away, clearly fed up with the fawning boss. Her identity is confirmed as she overhears the workers whispering about her famous grandfather. Despite their distance, her enhanced hearing picks up every word of their gossip. Their whispers turn to disappointment, questioning why she's only a B-rank hunter. She reflects on her famous lineage, viewing her grandfather's heroic name as nothing but a burden. A flashback reveals her rigorous training, but she could never escape the shadow of his immense legacy. Constantly compared to the hero, her true dream was to be an educator, not a fighter. Her dream was crushed when her grandfather furiously refused to even listen to her wishes. Forced down a path she never chose, she was denied a normal life because of her family name. The only compromise she could make was to enroll in a hunter academy. Her flashback reveals the student's shock and disappointment upon learning the Sword Star wasn't the instructor. She desperately tried to explain her role, but the students felt deceived by the famous name. The academy's fate was sealed the moment her grandfather's absence became known. Her pleas to stay were completely ignored by the disillusioned applicants. In a crushing moment, she watched as every potential student turned their back and walked away. A desperate attempt to stop them was met with cold indifference. She was left alone, realizing they only wanted the legend, not her teaching. Back in the present, she reflects on how her grandfather's influence drove away any remaining students, leaving her academy in obscurity. Clenching her fist in frustration, she laments her lack of a single dedicated cadet. Her bitter thoughts are shattered by a terrified worker screaming for everyone to run for their lives. She turns in shock, realizing the screams mean a monster is on the loose. Seojun can only watch as the resurrected beast corners his helpless boss. He struggles to understand how the manticore they carried could have survived. The injured boss desperately urges Seojun to flee and save his own life. But Seojun is paralyzed by the terrifying certainty that his boss will be killed. The grim reality of the situation sinks in, leaving him breathless with fear. He knows a 4-star manticore is too powerful for even a pro hunter, let alone a normal person. His mind races for a solution, suddenly remembering the B-class hunter who was just here. Realizing she's already gone, he grips a metal pipe, knowing it's too late for help to arrive. With the monster closing in, he understands that he is the only one who can act now. His mind races, knowing someone must act immediately to save his boss. The ravenous manticore licks its jaws, anticipating its meal. But a terrifying question hangs in the air. Who would be the one to do it? The beast unleashes a ferocious roar, preparing for the final blow. His hand clenches around the pipe, his knuckles turning white with determination. He throws his phone to the ground, no longer a bystander. A look of pure, unadulterated fury contorts his face as he charges. He leaps into action, swinging the pipe to intercept the monster's attack. His attack lands squarely on the beast as his boss screams for him to get away. But Seojun knows that if he turns his back now, they will both be lost. He grips the pipe, accepting that he is the only one left to fight. His only goal is to stall for time until professional hunters can arrive. He stands his ground, facing the terrifying silhouette of the monstrous manticore. He fights his own terror, forcing his trembling body to obey his will. A lesson from his instructor flashes through his mind. He is the universe itself. He recalls Siddhartha's teaching about observing the world and understanding its nature. The beast closes in, but Seojun remains eerily calm, his back turned to the threat. He embraces the lesson, choosing to let go of his overwhelming emotions. As the monster charges, he focuses on quieting his scared and shaking heart. With newfound clarity, his fear subsides, replaced by a calm and steady resolve. With his heart now calm, he faces the monstrous manticore's furious attack head-on. He remembers his instructor's words, thinking is too slow, he must rely on pure instinct. The manticore's claws slice through the air, narrowly missing him as his body moves on its own. In a blur of motion, he pivots low to the ground, completely evading the monster's lunge. The creature's bladed tail immediately whips around, aiming to impale him from behind. Acting before he can even think, he slams the pipe into the ground to pivot. Trusting his senses completely, he vaults high into the air, clearing the monster's back. His sudden aerial move leaves the manticore completely bewildered and unable to react. Soaring above the beast, he identifies a critical weak point, a perfect target for an attack. But his instincts fall silent, leaving him suspended in midair, unsure of his next move. A lesson from his spearmanship instructor flashes in his mind, revealing that true power isn't just physical strength. He recalls the Hegemon King's words, realizing he must have absolute, unwavering faith in his own attack. His hands tighten around the pipe, his knuckles white with newfound conviction. With a flash of light in his eyes, he finds the absolute certainty he needs to strike. His belief solidifies into an unbreakable command. He must cleave the beast in two. The manticore senses the shift in power, roaring up at him in a final defiant challenge. The beast unleashes its full power, a terrifying display of raw, monstrous energy. Seojun channels the legendary power of his instructor, his simple pipe now glowing with immense energy. He brings the weapon down in a single, perfect arc, connecting with the monster in a flash of light. The resulting impact creates a massive shockwave, engulfing the entire worksite in a cloud of dust. Drawn by the commotion, the B-class hunter and her entourage rush to investigate the deafening sound. Her eyes widen in disbelief as she tries to process the unbelievable scene before her. Through the settling dust, Seojun emerges, standing firm with the pipe still in his grasp. The aftermath reveals the manticore has been decisively defeated, with Seojun standing victorious amidst the wreckage. He looks down with a calm, almost stoic expression, as if assessing his own impossible feat. The stoicism shatters, replaced by pure shock as the reality of his actions sinks in. Utterly bewildered, he scratches his head, questioning how his desperate gamble actually paid off. A system notification pings, revealing huge progress boost across all his lectures after applying their teachings in a real battle. The B-class hunter can only stare, her mind reeling as she tries to comprehend the scene of devastation. She watches in disbelief, unable to fathom how a mere corpse mover with a simple pipe could achieve such a victory. Seo-jun snaps back to reality, his mind still reeling from the impossible fight. He rushes past the stunned hunter, his only concern being the safety of his boss. While Seo-jun checks on his injured boss, the B-class hunter watches him with a newfound intense interest. The hunter coolly dismisses the near-fatal incident as a minor oversight to the fawning manager. His co-workers celebrate his bravery, mobbing him with praise and overwhelming relief. A sudden realization dawns on the hunter's face as she identifies Seo-jun as the one she's been searching for. The narrative confirms her discovery, labeling Seo-jun as the proper cadet she desperately needs. As the day ends, the boss swears everyone to secrecy, while Seo-jun promises to visit him at the hospital. Walking home alone, Seo-jun pulls out his phone, his expression shifting to one of utter confusion. He stares at the screen, realizing his lecture progress has skyrocketed, proving that real combat is the ultimate teacher. He reflects on the fight, realizing that real-world experience is far more valuable than just watching lectures. With a determined look, he concludes that applying his lessons in actual combat is the fastest way to progress. But he hits a wall. Without a hunter's license from a proper academy, he can't legally enter dungeons to fight. As he walks, a voice calls out, and he turns to see the B-class hunter approaching him. She asks for a moment of his time, and he recognizes her as the granddaughter of the legendary sword star. He cautiously agrees, wondering what she could possibly want from him as she prepares to be direct. With a serious expression, she asks him to come with her to meet her famous grandfather. Seo-jun's response is one of complete indifference as he flatly rejects her offer. His blunt refusal leaves her completely speechless as he casually turns to leave. He walks away toward the sunset, eager to get home for more lessons, while she desperately calls after him. The hunter, Park Seo-yun, is completely flustered, having never experienced such a blunt rejection in her 31 years. He calls out her academy for being a paper-only institution with 0 students, leaving her utterly speechless. She mentally recounts his strange training and the impossible feat of defeating a manticore with a simple pipe. All signs point to one undeniable fact: he is determined to become a hunter. She desperately pitches her academy's resources, but he coldly states he has no need for her instruction. His continued rejection makes her grit her teeth in pure, unadulterated frustration. Playing her final card, she offers him direct training from the legendary sword star, her grandfather. Yet even that legendary name doesn't faze him, as he dismisses the offer that most hunters would kill for. Panicked, she realizes she absolutely cannot let this once-in-a-lifetime prospect walk away. In a last-ditch effort, she brings up the difficult written exam, but he confidently brushes it off. She stops him in his tracks, pointing out that without an academy, his talent for raiding is completely wasted. He scoffs at her academy's legitimacy, but she frantically confirms they have the authority to get him into raids.
His pace slows, a flicker of interest showing as he finally considers her desperate offer.
Sensing an opening, she sweetens the deal, promising a private training facility with no interference. As a final, desperate move, she offers him a full scholarship, completely free of charge. He finally stops, coolly asking what she wants in return for this generous deal. She lays out her simple terms: compete under her academy's name and publicly represent them. He admits the offer solves all his problems, but questions her true motive for recruiting him. With unwavering conviction, she declares it's because she witnessed his incredible, untapped potential. Her gaze is intense and sincere, showing she truly believes he is the key to her academy's future. Seo-jun weighs her offer, a slight smile revealing he sees the advantages. He extends his hand to seal the deal, formally introducing himself as Kim Seo-jun. With a relieved smile, she firmly shakes his hand, introducing herself as Park Seo-yun. A narrative voice hints that their individual ambitions will one day merge into a single, powerful will. The very next day, his phone buzzes, bringing unexpected news. His former colleague calls in a panic, questioning what Seo-jun did to cause the work leader's sudden departure. He remembers asking Seo-yun to report his dislike for the work leader, assuming the man resigned over the manticore incident, not his complaint. He inwardly scoffs, knowing the man would never resign on principle, but is glad to be rid of him for everyone's sake. His colleague's question is answered as Seo-jun arrives at the Dream Hunter Academy, where Seo-yoon is already waiting. Wasting no time, she presents him with his official temporary hunter license, a key to his new path. Seo-jun accepts the license, which Seo-yoon notes was surprisingly easy to acquire. He holds the license, a tangible symbol of the first step toward achieving his dream. Brimming with determination, he eagerly asks for his first lesson on dungeon raiding. Seo-yoon cryptically dismisses his request, leaving him completely puzzled by her response. Instead of a lecture, she gestures to a rack of spears, telling him to choose his weapon for immediate training. A knowing smirk plays on her lips, hinting at the practical lesson she has in store. She reveals her plan, having already secured a live dungeon for his first real-world test. Inside the dungeon, Seo-jun effortlessly dispatches a monster with a single, precise spear thrust. He turns to find Seo-yoon right behind him, questioning why she broke their non-interference agreement. She reframes her presence as a special one-on-one lesson, an offer he begrudgingly accepts. She warns him that even weak kobolds require focus, positioning herself as his personal safety device. He notes that his spear easily pierced the kobold's weak mana defense, unlike the manticores. His eyes glow as he realizes his attacks are bypassing the mana barriers that should stop a non-mana user. As another kobold attacks, his body instinctively dodges before he can even process the danger. He fluidly ducks under the monster's lunge, his movements almost precognitive. With a swift counterattack, he strikes the beast, proving his manaless techniques are deadly effective. He checks his phone and sees his lecture progress climbing with every kill, confirming his theory. While the gains aren't massive, he realizes this is a perfect way to train and earn money simultaneously. With a grin, he decides to speed things up, comparing the dungeon raid to grinding for experience in a video game. He dives into the fray, effortlessly taking on multiple monsters at once in a whirlwind of spear strikes. Seo-yoon reflects that she always knew her new cadet was a weird person, but his level of craziness transcends all her expectations, leaving her completely unnerved. From her point of view, he's been staring intently at a blank phone screen for hours. She's left utterly baffled by his inexplicable behavior and impossible combat skills. An untrained cadet on his first ever raid is fighting with the brutal efficiency of a 10-year veteran. He even turns hauling monster corpses into a bizarre workout, much to her disbelief. As Seo-jun suddenly bolts, Seo-yoon worries about how to explain her new eccentric cadet to her grandfather. She's left alone at midnight, questioning her judgment as her Cinderella cadet has already vanished. Meanwhile, Seo-jun is all smiles, looking absolutely delighted with his day's work. A quick check of his bank account reveals he's earned a small fortune from a single day in the dungeon. He recalls the grueling work of dismantling monster corpses, a task that even shocked his new instructor. But he realizes the dungeon grind is too slow, preventing him from completing his daily lectures. He considers offering a business partnership to his former boss, Min-chul, wanting to help the man out. Crossing the street, he ponders how to best invest his newfound earnings for maximum growth. His progress has hit a wall, with the weak dungeon monsters no longer boosting his lecture completion rate. He desperately seeks a faster path to power, aspiring to the legendary strength of Sun Wukong. A new resolve forms as he stands alone, his shadow stretching out before him. The name Sun Wukong sparks a brilliant idea, a sudden and shocking revelation. He pulls up a lecture from the legendary sage himself, a course he previously couldn't afford. With a greedy, determined grin, he prepares to unlock the secrets of the Monkey King. He taps the register button without a second thought, ready to learn from a legend. But a system notification instantly hits him with an astronomical registration fee of 27 million. Seo-jun freezes in place, his brain short-circuiting at the impossible price tag. The sheer absurdity of the cost echoes in his mind, a sum far beyond his wildest dreams. Crushed by the reality of his finances, he collapses in despair on the sidewalk as a dark aura surrounds him. Realizing the lecture is a lost cause for now, he shifts his focus, wondering if the academy sells gear instead. As onlookers give him a wide berth, he suddenly discovers a new section in the app. A transcendent shop appears, offering training equipment made by other students. His eyes widen in utter disbelief as he scrolls through the shop's inventory. The store is filled with legendary artifacts like the Aegis Shield and the Lance of Longinus, items of myth. He reels back in shock, realizing these are all mythic-level items disguised as simple training gear. Even to his untrained eye, the sheer power of these legendary weapons is undeniable. He realizes that if students made these, then they were forged by the Transcended themselves. A giddy smile spreads across his face as he focuses on the equipment he can use right away. Without hesitation, he taps to purchase a copy of the legendary Lance of Longinus. A system notification appears, calculating a price based on a complex causality rate. The final price notification for the legendary spear is about to be revealed. The scene shifts to Seo-yoon at the academy, looking puzzled as she counts Seo-jun's reps. She watches him train with a new, frantic energy, wondering what could have possibly happened. As he pushes through his workout, he internally justifies the risk, knowing even a copy would be priceless. The price for the legendary spear is revealed to be a staggering $100,000, a sum he can't possibly afford. His hopes of reselling the item are immediately dashed by a system rule strictly forbidding it. Crushed by his financial reality, he slumps in despair, only to be interrupted by Seo-yoon. She asks him if he's ever heard of the academy contention, piquing his curiosity. He admits his ignorance, prompting her to explain it's a competition for academies to prove their supremacy. She hands him a file, revealing it's a way for academies to be officially evaluated and ranked. A diagram reveals a tiered league system, where strong performances allow academies to climb the ranks. He quickly understands that winning this competition means more prestige, students, and government support. She gives a confident smirk, confirming that he has correctly guessed her intentions. Seo-yoon officially asks him to be the sole representative for her academy in the upcoming competition. Seo-jun realizes the academy contention is the perfect way to skyrocket his lecture progress. Seeing it as invaluable combat experience, he eagerly agrees to participate. While Seo-yoon reminds him it was part of their deal, he's already focused on the competition's format. She explains their score will be based on a combination of dungeon raids and cadet duels. A sudden worry hits him. He has zero experience fighting against other humans. Determined to prepare properly, he wonders aloud if there's anyone available to spar with. He turns to his new instructor, a bold idea forming in his mind. Seo-jun shocks Seo-yoon by asking her, a B-class hunter, to be his training partner. Annoyed by his audacity, she grabs a pair of wooden swords, feeling goaded into the match. But Seo-jun sees a golden opportunity to fight a B-rank hunter trained by the legendary sword star. Seo-yoon prepares for the duel, unaware of the intense aura radiating from her new student. Seo-jun is practically giddy, thrilled at the chance to test the true strength of a B-rank hunter. She reminds him of her professional rank, but his sharp, focused gaze confirms he knows exactly what he's doing. He playfully asks her to go easy on him, taking a fighting stance that belies his casual words. With a resigned sigh, she concedes the first blow, confident that the match will be over quickly. He wastes no time accepting her offer, lunging forward with a powerful and immediate strike. She effortlessly blocks his predictable attack, her expression one of mild disappointment. As she deflects another blow, she mentally critiques his form, finding it awkward and amateurish. She observes that while his footwork is quick, it's also clumsy and lacks any real technique. His attack is easily stopped, as she finds his movements completely telegraphed and easy to counter. She concludes she overestimated him, believing his impressive dungeon performance was a fluke. Annoyed by his audacity, she decides to end the spar with a single, powerful blow. She channels her mana, preparing a decisive strike to put him firmly in his place. But her confident attack is met with an unexpected outcome, leaving her completely stunned. Seo-jun has somehow managed to block her mana-infused strike with his plain wooden staff. He grits his teeth, his arms trembling as he struggles against the immense pressure of her attack. She stares in disbelief, unable to comprehend how he stopped a blow containing mana without any of his own. Her plan was simple: deflect his weapon and hold her sword to his neck for an easy victory. But instead of breaking, Seo-jun expertly disengages, creating distance and resetting his stance. The failed maneuver leaves her frozen in place, realizing her opponent is far more capable than she assumed. A confident smirk spreads across Seo-jun's face as he decides to get serious. Wiping a bit of blood from his lip, he declares he's done holding back and lunges forward. Seo-yoon is stunned as the tide of the battle turns, his attack suddenly becoming faster and sharper. His movements are now a blur of controlled power, a complete transformation from his earlier clumsiness. He recalls a lesson from the Hegemon King, instructing him to use obvious attacks to set up his opponent. The instructor's voice explains that a thinking opponent requires a different strategy, mixing in feints with his strikes. He internalizes the lesson that a skilled fighter will never just stand still and take a hit. Seo-jun realizes that predictable attacks will force predictable defenses, allowing him to control the fight. He expertly uses her block against her, redirecting the force to pull her off balance for his next move. The strategy works perfectly, leaving Seo-jun completely exposed and unable to defend against his true attack. With Seo-jun completely thrown off balance, he seizes the perfect opening to attack. Heeding his instructor's mental command, he prepares to unleash his full power in a single strike. Her eyes widen in terror, sensing the overwhelming power behind his incoming strike. Reacting with incredible speed, she dodges the attack, which pulverizes the ground where she just was. She stares at the crater in disbelief, questioning the source of his devastating power. The immense strain of his own attack leaves him collapsed on the floor, having suffered internal damage. Racked with guilt, she rushes to his side, believing her own power caused his collapse. He brushes off his injuries with a laugh, casually admitting that she was the clear winner of their duel. His casual attitude stuns her, as she realizes he genuinely thought he had a shot at winning. He calmly analyzes the fight, leaving her completely unsure how to process her impossibly talented new cadet. He acknowledges the vast power gap between himself and a professional hunter, realizing he still has a long way to go. A quick check of his phone confirms his theory. The spar boosted his lecture progress just as he'd hoped. He turns to Seo-jun, comparing his training to leveling up in a game, and asks about her schedule. His bold request hangs in the air as she processes his desire to spar with her again. Impressed by his unwavering dedication, she agrees to his request, deciding his weirdness is a small price to pay for his hard work. To motivate him further, she promises to do everything he asks and even offers him the entire prize purse if he wins. The mention of prize money catches his attention, as he hadn't considered a cash reward. Seo-jun racks her brain, trying to remember the exact amount of the tournament's grand prize. The prize money is a staggering $100,000, the exact amount he needs for the legendary spear he desires. A fire ignites in his eyes as he intensely asks for the tournament date, his sudden greed leaving Seo-jun completely bewildered. He learns the tournament is in 2 weeks, and a fire of pure determination ignites in his eyes. Ignoring the gym equipment, he asks to rip a chunk out of the building for a better workout, leaving Seo-jun baffled. He immediately starts lifting a massive concrete block, beginning his insane training regimen as she watches in horror. Completely defeated by his logic, Seo-jun points him toward the actual sandbags, hoping to prevent property damage. With a renewed sense of purpose, Seo-jun vows to win the prize money, while his instructor simply gives up trying to understand him. 2 weeks of intense, non-stop training pass in the blink of an eye. On the day of the tournament, a large crowd gathers, buzzing with anticipation for the fights. A new spectacled character arrives on the scene, carrying a large case and looking surprised by the turnout. He navigates the bustling crowd, noting that a good fight always draws a large audience. As he explains the presence of guild scouts and government officials, onlookers mock him for being a walking exposition dump. The spectacled man cuts himself off, asking a guide to direct him to the player waiting room. He sits anxiously in a car, clutching his seatbelt and wondering how to handle the situation. Overwhelmed by the intimidating presence of other cadets, he freezes in the hallway, too timid to move. He gawks at the other competitors' sparkling high-end equipment, wondering how much it all costs. The sheer muscle and confidence radiating from the other cadets leaves him completely awestruck. He notes that every academy sent their best, but his attention is suddenly drawn to one particular person. His eyes land on Seo-jun, who sits alone with a shabby spear and a jacket for a holder, looking utterly out of place. Other cadets begin to whisper, mocking Seo-jun's peasant-like appearance and questioning which backwater academy he represents. Seo-jun overhears their taunts but ignores them, choosing to focus on his phone, which others note has a blank screen. As the mockery continues, the spectacled man stares intently, having a strong feeling about the unassuming cadet. The spectacled man has a sudden epiphany, recognizing Seo-jun's awkwardness as a sign of a fellow loner. He feels a wave of pity, realizing Seo-jun is also trying to look busy on his phone because he came alone. A one-sided bond of camaraderie blooms in his mind, while Seo-jun just feels confused by the intense stare. Mustering his courage, the spectacled man approaches and greets Seo-jun, who looks up from his phone. He introduces himself as Lee Mingi, a fellow cadet, and Seo-jun formally responds with his own name. As Mingi asks to sit down, a hulking, aggressive cadet stomps over, interrupting their introduction with a furious shout. Mingi nervously identifies the aggressor as Jang Dukchul, a powerful axe wielder from a rival academy. The hulking cadet, Jang Dukchul, aggressively tells another competitor to get out of his way. His rival, Lee Chulman, coolly stands his ground, refusing to be intimidated by the brute's threats. Seo-jun is left completely baffled as Mingi continues his unsolicited play-by-play, explaining Chulman's fighting style. Seo-jun dryly notes that his new acquaintance seems to know an awful lot about everyone here. The hulking brute loses his temper, furiously demanding that the other cadets quiet down. A new imposing figure with red hair calmly watches the escalating tension from a distance. He coldly reminds them of his presence, his sharp gaze instantly silencing the entire room. Mingi identifies the newcomer as Lee Junhwan, the undisputed favorite to win the entire tournament. He clarifies that Junhwan is so powerful he considered this competition beneath him, making his victory a certainty. Mingi then brings up the legendary Sword Saint, a name so famous it would be strange not to know it. He shares a rumor that Seo-yun herself tried to recruit Junhwan, a revelation that shocks Seo-jun. But Seo-jun knows the real reason for the rejection. Her academy is a paper-only sham with no reputation. Disgusted by the low caliber of his opponents, Junhwan slams his case down in a show of pure contempt. Junhwan scoffs at the competition, revealing he's only here to fulfill his uncle's wish. He clenches his fist in frustration, regretting a decision he made before the tournament. A flashback reveals he rejected Seo-yun's offer, but now wishes he had used her academy for its connections. His bitter thoughts are cut short as his attention is suddenly drawn to someone nearby. His eyes narrow in contempt as he spots Seo-jun, dismissing him as a worthless peasant. While Junhwan fumes, Seo-jun sizes him up, wondering how much progress a fight with the top prospect would yield. An announcement calls the cadets to prepare as the first match of the tournament is about to begin. Mingi jumps to his feet, alerting Seo-jun that it's time for them to head out. Seo-jun reflects on his 2 weeks of training, aiming to push his lecture progress past 30%. He walks down the corridor with quiet confidence, feeling the subtle but significant growth in his abilities. He reflects on how dungeon raids and sparring with Seo-yun have supplemented his otherwise lacking experience. With a clenched fist, he feels completely prepared for any challenge, be it monsters or duels. His eyes are firmly on the prize as he strides forward, motivated by the $100,000 reward. The first event is announced as the Dungeon Maze Race, leaving him standing alone in a vast, empty hall. A system notification confirms his lecture progress is steadily climbing, but still has a long way to go. The tournament officially kicks off as the crowd roars with excitement in the massive arena. In the stands, his former colleague excitedly waves over their old boss, Minchul. Minchul complains about their corner seats and accidentally bumps into a woman in a cap. He apologizes to the woman, who is actually a disguised Seo-yun trying to keep a low profile. Dismissing the encounter, Minchul turns his attention back to the event, asking for details on the first round. His colleague explains the first round is a dungeon maze race, a test of intuition where attacking other cadets is forbidden. He theorizes that hunting monsters within the maze will reveal clues to the exit. His theory is proven correct as another cadet finds a clue after defeating a monster. Minchul notes the high skill level of the competitors, just as his junior points excitedly toward the arena's main screen. On the screen, a powerful cadet unleashes a devastating flurry of attacks, overwhelming a massive beast. The camera zooms in on the top prospect, Lee Junhwan, whose cold gaze reveals his absolute dominance. Even Minchul is left speechless, recognizing that Junhwan's skill is on a completely different level. The disguised Seo-yun confirms his identity as Lee Junhwan, the undisputed favorite to win. She's left completely baffled, questioning why a prodigy like Junhwan would bother with this tournament. Panicked, she quickly hides, desperate to avoid being recognized so she can continue to observe in secret. As his friends worry from the stands, Seo-jun begins his journey through the stark white maze. He tests the wall with his spear, finding it reinforced and nearly impossible to break. Realizing brute force is not an option, he confirms the organizers have blocked any easy shortcuts. He sighs, resigning himself to solving the maze conventionally, wishing he had a lecture from the hero Theseus. He places a hand on the wall, preparing to use a classic maze-solving technique. He muses that a different lecture might have given him the power to simply smash through the walls. His attention is suddenly drawn to a junction just ahead, forcing him to make a decision. He stands before a three-way fork, the first true test of his intuition in the maze. He decides to use the simple wall-following method, but knows the word eventually is the biggest hurdle. With his eyes glowing with focus, he chooses the left path and begins his methodical advance. But as he moves, a strange, indescribable feeling washes over him, making him pause. He can't identify the source of this sensation, but it's an undeniable pull in a new direction. His logical choice is overruled by a powerful gut instinct, a sixth sense he suspects is from Chiron's lecture. After a moment of silent consideration, he decides to trust this newfound intuition. He abandons his original plan, turning to follow the mysterious feeling instead. With a shrug, he commits to his gut feeling, deciding it's better than wandering aimlessly. A system notification confirms his choice was correct, as his lecture progress ticks upward. He finds the whole situation bizarre, gaining experience just by walking down a hallway. Announcements of other cadets being eliminated confirm that fights are happening elsewhere in the maze.
Yet he continues down his own eerily quiet path, wondering why nothing is happening to him.
He questions if his newfound intuition is deliberately guiding him away from the maze's monsters. The thought escalates as he wonders if mastering this skill could grant him a form of precognition in battle. His speculation is cut short when his new acquaintance, Mingi, suddenly appears behind him. Mingi frantically warns him about the dangers, while Seo-jun internally dismisses his own wild theories and plays along. The spectacled cadet questions Seo-jun's confident stride, but he coolly replies that he's just following his feelings. Horrified by this reckless strategy, Mingi insists on taking the lead, claiming to know a proper maze-solving method. He tries to explain the classic wall-following technique, but Seo-jun rejects the slow, methodical approach. When Mingi protests, Seo-jun suggests they part ways, finally asking why he's being followed in the first place. Mingi proudly declares them comrades, united by their shared circumstances, leaving Seo-jun completely baffled. The spectacled cadet explains he's also participating alone, leading Seo-jun to finally understand their initial meeting. Mingi suggests they team up as the weak ones, leaving Seo-jun to question if he's being insulted. The spectacled cadet offers to show Seo-jun something special, a reward for them both being alone. He proudly displays a photo of his younger sister, but Seo-jun can only offer a painfully awkward acknowledgement. Deciding he's had enough, Seo-jun tries to walk away, only for Mingi to desperately grab his leg. Annoyed by his new acquaintance's tenacity, Seo-jun internally admits that being alone in a maze would be unnerving for most. Mingi insists it's too dangerous to be alone, but Seo-jun remembers they are rivals competing for a huge cash prize. Seo-jun flips the script, asking if Mingi's family is there to support him, catching the other cadet off guard. The question prompts a sad confession. Mingi's parents are gone and his sister is all he has left. The revelation triggers a flashback to Seo-jun's own lonely past in a desolate apartment. Struck by their shared experience, Seo-jun falls silent, his grip tightening on his weapon. Mingi panics and backpedals, realizing his sad story has made the situation incredibly awkward. Seo-jun finally relents, admitting that Mingi was right about them being comrades in a similar situation. He begrudgingly allows the other cadet to follow, but makes it clear it's not a team-up. With a smirk, he clarifies that while they can walk together, the prize money is all his. He turns and walks away, leaving Mingi to process the terms of their new, one-sided alliance. Mingi is left breathless, questioning the incredible speed at which his new comrade is moving. With a smug grin, Seo-jun points out that Mingi was the one who insisted on following, ignoring his pleas to slow down. The spectacled cadet watches in disbelief, wondering how anyone can move so confidently without any apparent plan. The thought crosses his mind that Seo-jun is moving with impossible certainty, as if he already knows the way out. Just as he catches his breath, Mingi sees that Seo-jun's confident path has led them straight to a dead end. Ignoring Mingi's doubt, Seo-jun calmly places a hand on the dead-end wall, his intuition telling him something is there. To Mingi's utter astonishment, Seo-jun pushes the wall, revealing a hidden passage that slides open. The spectacled cadet is left speechless, completely unable to process how Seo-jun found a secret exit. An announcement rocks the arena as the first maze breaker emerges, shattering the previous record by hours. The crowd erupts in confusion, wondering who could have finished when the top prospect is still fighting inside. In the stands, a disguised Seo-yun's eyes widen in dawning horror and disbelief. Mingi stares at the results, his mind completely blown by the impossible outcome. The main screen reveals the winner's name, leaving Minchul and his friends screaming in shock. Seo-jun casually strolls into the arena, slightly disappointed that his shortcut meant he missed out on fighting monsters. Mingi trembles, realizing he only cleared the maze because he randomly decided to follow his impossibly gifted new comrade. Mingi reflects that his original plan was simply to work together to escape the maze. The official results confirm Seo-jun took first place with an unbelievable time, with Mingi right behind him. Other cadets murmur in disbelief, questioning how a student from a no-name academy could have won. Seo-jun tries to focus on his lecture, annoyed by the chatter as the top prospect Lee Junhwan approaches. The red-haired prodigy stops directly in front of Seo-jun, who looks up with a questioning glance. The entire room falls silent as the other cadets watch the top prospect confront the unexpected winner. Seo-jun wonders why Junhwan is scrutinizing him so intensely, as if looking for a hidden secret. Junhwan's gaze is filled with disbelief and contempt, unable to accept the results. With a condescending smirk, Junhwan dismisses Seo-jun without a word and turns to walk away. The other cadets immediately decide Seo-jun's victory was nothing more than a stroke of pure luck. The other cadets mock Seo-jun's victory as pure luck, but he ignores them to focus on his lectures. An official steps forward to announce the details for the second round of the contention. He reveals the next stage is a one-on-one tournament where weapons are banned, but mana strengthening is permitted. Seo-jun mentally prepares for a 32-person bracket, wondering who he'll be matched against first. Just as the announcer is about to reveal the pairings, Seo-jun raises his hand to interrupt. He calmly declares his intention to forfeit, leaving the entire room completely stunned by his decision. In the stands, a disguised Seo-yun sighs in relief, having narrowly avoided being recognized. Her surprise at Seo-jun's win causes her to shout, accidentally drawing Minchul's attention and blowing her cover. She quickly hides, frustrated by the chaotic matchups and deciding to wait for the crowd to disperse. She's shocked to learn the tournament is starting at the semifinals, because almost every other cadet has already forfeited. Minchul complains to his friend that with so many forfeits, there's no fun left in gambling on the matches. His friend suggests betting on Lee Junhwan, but the bookie confirms the odds are terrible since he's the clear favorite. A mysterious hooded figure interrupts, slamming down a case and placing a $1 million bet on Kim Seo-jun. The bookie and the other men are left speechless by the massive, seemingly foolish wager. From her hiding spot, Seo-jun watches in confusion as the bookie tries to dissuade the mysterious gambler. The hooded figure ignores the warnings, their powerful aura hinting at a hidden identity as they contemplate the bet. Meanwhile, Seo-jun sits in the waiting room, disappointed that his decision to forfeit has made things boring. A flashback shows the moment he calmly announced his forfeit, shocking the other competitors. Mingi explains to a confused Seo-jun that forfeiting is common, as most cadets know they can't beat the top prospects. Other cadets agree, whispering about Junhwan's brutal reputation and the risk of permanent injury for a minor tournament. A cadet explains they'd just be stepping stones for the bigger academies anyway. The other cadets agree, concluding that it's better to just forfeit. Seo-jun's decision to forfeit triggers a chain reaction, as other cadets quickly follow suit. He watches in confusion as the room empties, with Mingi nervously observing the mass exodus. Soon, only 5 cadets remain, with the brute complaining about the younger generation's lack of grit. The first round matchup is announced, pitting Seo-jun against the hulking axe-wielder Jang Dukshul. The second bracket reveals Mingi is slated to fight the top prospect Lee Junhwan, while Chulman gets a bye. Seo-jun casually asks Mingi if his maze victory will guarantee him the top spot if he makes it to the finals. He notices Mingi is shaking uncontrollably, who asks in terror if Seo-jun isn't scared the matches are about to begin. Mingi panics about facing Junhwan, but Seo-jun calmly observes that his new friend seems lively enough. Seo-jun questions Mingi's defeatist attitude, but his friend insists he already knows the outcome. The spectacled cadet nervously suggests that Seo-jun should forfeit the match as well. Mingi admits he can't back out, just as an official announces Seo-jun's match is about to begin. As Seo-jun rises to leave, he offers some parting advice. Fight to the end, because victory is never impossible. Desperate, Mingi suddenly grabs Seo-jun's wrist, stopping him in his tracks. Seo-jun turns back, confused by the sudden physical contact from his panicked new acquaintance. The spectacled cadet asks with genuine confusion if Seo-jun feels any worry about the upcoming fight. With a chilling smirk, Seo-jun admits he has no concerns, only wondering how much progress his opponent is worth. He confidently strides away, telling Mingi to wait for him with the prize money, leaving the other cadet utterly bewildered. The scene shifts to the packed arena, where an announcer hypes up the crowd for the final matches of the tournament. The announcer introduces Seo-jun as the mysterious maze winner, who casually waves to the crowd. His opponent, however, believes Seo-jun's luck has just run out. The hulking Jang Dukchul boasts that his overwhelming strength will crush any of Seo-jun's tricks. Dukchul declares that Seo-jun was truly unlucky to have drawn him as an opponent. Enraged by Seo-jun's calm retort, Dukchul grits his teeth as the match officially begins. Without a moment's hesitation, the brute charges forward, promising to punish Seo-jun for his arrogance. Seo-jun watches the incoming attack with a confident, almost knowing smirk. Back in the waiting room, Mingi watches the start of the match with nervous anticipation. He anxiously wonders if his new acquaintance can possibly handle the hulking opponent. But a glance at his own future opponent, Lee Junhwan, reminds Mingi he has far bigger things to worry about. Mingi's dread intensifies as he remembers his next opponent is the formidable Lee Junhwan. Seo-jun's parting words echo in his mind, but the advice to fight to the end only makes him tremble more. He clenches his fist in frustration, overwhelmed by the pressure of the competition. He rationalizes his fear, believing that cadets from no-name academies stand no chance against the elites. But as he watches the match, his resolve to forfeit is shattered by the unbelievable outcome. Mingi stares in disbelief, realizing the entire fight was over in the blink of an eye. The announcer declares Seo-jun the winner, who stands calmly over his defeated opponent. Junhwan scoffs at the spectacle, dismissing the other cadets as trash playing amongst themselves. His sharp, dismissive gaze sweeps over the room, filled with utter contempt for the competition. The top prospect finally turns his cold attention to Mingi, his next scheduled opponent. Mingi stammers, completely intimidated by the top prospect's intense stare. Junhwan's eyes glow with fury as he decides he will also forfeit his match. The recap flashes back to Seo-jun's match, where Dukchul unleashes a furious opening strike. But Seo-jun easily sidesteps the powerful blow, moving with surprising agility. Dukchul stares in shock, realizing his opponent's maze victory was no fluke. He continues to effortlessly deflect every attack, treating the brute's onslaught like a warm-up. Frustration mounts as Dukchul's relentless assault fails to land a single hit. Enraged, the brute channels all his mana into one final devastating overhead strike. Seo-jun calmly meets the mana-infused axe head-on with nothing but his simple wooden staff. The powerful axe shatters on impact, leaving Dukchul trembling in utter disbelief at his defeat. Dukchul collapses to the ground, his body and pride completely shattered. He stares up in a daze, unable to comprehend how he lost in a pure contest of strength. As the announcer declares Seo-jun the winner, Dukchul questions how he was so easily overpowered. But back in the waiting room, Seo-jun sighs in disappointment, unimpressed by his own victory. He checks his phone, annoyed that the fight only provided a meager boost to his lecture progress. He laments the mass forfeits, realizing they've robbed him of valuable combat experience. His panic grows as he sees his free pastimer ticking down, threatening to halt his progress entirely. With his financial future on the line, he realizes winning the prize money is now his only option. His thoughts are interrupted by an awestruck Mingi who can't believe how powerful his new friend is. But their conversation is cut short as an official arrives to announce the next match is about to begin. An official calls out the next matchup, pitting a terrified Mingi against the top prospect, Lee Junhwan. Junhwan coldly brushes past Mingi, dismissing him as nothing more than a pest in his way. As the prodigy walks away, Mingi turns to Seo-jun, reminding him of their shared situation. He confesses that he felt a strange kinship with Seo-jun, feeling both happy and jealous of his victory. Mingi admits his own feelings of inadequacy, acknowledging he lacks the talent and strength Seo-jun possesses. But with renewed determination, He declares his desire to be a brother his little sister can be proud of. Just then, an official summons him for his match, and he answers the call with surprising energy. Seo-jun offers a simple word of encouragement, telling his new friend to do his best. A rare, genuine smile appears on Seo-jun's face, moved by Mingi's sudden burst of courage. Fired up, Mingi looks toward the arena and boldly declares that they will meet again in the finals. Mingi tries to build his confidence, but Junhwan scoffs at the pathetic display. The top prospect snaps, annoyed by Mingi's constant muttering. Junhwan fumes internally, disgusted that he was forced into this low-level tournament. He sizes up Mingi with contempt, dismissing him as a worthless opponent. Junhwan's intense glare radiates pure killing intent, paralyzing Mingi with fear. The prodigy can already sense the massive gap in their power, seeing the fight as already over. In his eyes, Mingi is nothing more than helpless prey, a creature at the bottom of the food chain. As a natural predator, Junhwan views his opponent as simple fodder for his own ambition. He believes Mingi's presence is a fluke and decides it's time to put the lucky amateur in his place. The prodigy seethes, believing Seo-jun's win stole his rightful glory, and now he'll take his frustration out on Mingi. Mingi stands in the arena, trembling with fear but trying to channel his newfound resolve. Junhwan scoffs, utterly disgusted that he has to face such a pathetic opponent. Impatient to get this over with, the top prospect dismisses Mingi and asks the ref to start the match. As the announcer begins, Mingi tries to build his courage, remembering Seo-jun's impossible win. Junhwan decides there's no need to drag out this farce of a tournament any longer. The match commences, and the prodigy explodes forward, determined to end the fight in a single flash. Mingi barely deflects the first devastating strike, the force of the blow sending him reeling. The announcer notes Junhwan's immediate, overwhelming assault, while Mingi is already struggling to survive. With a cold glare, Junhwan decides that if Mingi is going to be a pest, he'll be treated like one. He follows up with a brutal strike, demanding his opponent act like the nuisance he is. The brutal strike sends Mingi's glasses flying, the impact leaving him reeling in pain. He collapses to his knees as the announcer questions if the match is already over. Staring up at his opponent, Mingi is overwhelmed by the certainty of his own defeat. He pants for breath, realizing he's completely outmatched by the prodigy's power. His promise to his sister flashes through his mind, along with his desire to be strong like Seo-jun. With tears of frustration welling in his eyes, he desperately clings to the image of his new friend's strength. To Junhwan's surprise, Mingi slowly struggles back to his feet, refusing to give up. With renewed focus, he decides he only needs to land a single meaningful blow. He channels all his remaining energy into his sword for one last desperate attack. But Junhwan watches the incoming strike with cold indifference, completely unimpressed by the effort. The sound of steel on steel rings out as Mingi's final desperate attack is met. But his effort is futile, and the announcer declares Junhwan the decisive winner as Mingi lies defeated. In the stands, the crowd confirms the obvious, noting that the outcome was never in doubt. They acknowledge Junhwan's skill, but a single drop of blood reveals the fight wasn't entirely one-sided. The prodigy freezes, a look of pure shock on his face as he realizes he's been cut. He touches his cheek in disbelief, stunned that a worthless amateur actually managed to land a hit. Junhwan glares down at his fallen opponent, his victory now tainted by this unexpected humiliation. His eyes glow with fury as he dismisses Mingi's desperate effort with a contemptuous sneer. The prodigy's mind races, unable to believe he let his guard down against such a weakling. His pride is shattered, and his rage boils over at the thought of being wounded by someone so far beneath him. Junhwan shocks the referee by announcing his forfeit, despite having just won the match. His rage boiling over, the prodigy delivers a vicious kick to his already defeated opponent. He internally fumes, utterly disgusted with what he considers a pathetic excuse for a tournament. The top prospect erupts in a furious tirade, blaming the low quality of the competitors for the event's poor reputation. Ignoring the referee's warnings, Junhwan scoffs at the threat of consequences and continues his verbal assault. He pins the helpless Mingi to the ground with his foot in a final act of humiliation. With cold contempt, Junhwan lectures his fallen opponent on knowing his place in the hierarchy, but his tirade is cut short as Seo-jun suddenly intervenes, landing a solid blow on the unsuspecting prodigy. Before Junhwan can react, Seo-jun presses his spear to the prodigy's throat, explaining he's had a change of plans. With a look of cold fury, Seo-jun decides that Junhwan's punishment can't wait for the finals. Seo-jun applies pressure with his spear, his anger palpable as he confronts the arrogant prodigy. He explains that while he intended to wait for the finals, Junhwan's actions have forced his hand. With a look of pure fury, he declares that the prodigy deserves an immediate lesson in humility. The prodigy coldly tells Seo-jun to get out of his way, completely unfazed by the threat. Seo-jun ignores the command, instead ordering Junhwan to remove his foot from Mingi's back. Junhwan taunts him, defiantly asking what Seo-jun will do if he refuses to comply. Without another word, Seo-jun uses his spear to sweep Junhwan's legs, forcing him away from Mingi. He immediately turns his attention to his fallen friend, checking to see if Mingi is all right. Junhwan scoffs from a distance, mocking what he sees as a pathetic display of friendship between weaklings. Seo-jun calmly asks the prodigy if he truly enjoys looking down on others with such contempt. Seo-jun demands to know why the prodigy feels the need to trample on a defeated opponent. Junhwan coldly explains that it's repulsive to see a pest who doesn't know his proper place. Seo-jun challenges this logic, questioning if someone deemed a pest isn't allowed to have dreams. The prodigy scoffs at the naive idea, as onlookers wonder why the officials aren't stopping the confrontation. The mysterious hooded figure watches the officials, who reveal they have orders from above not to interfere. In the stands, a disguised Seo-jun watches with growing anxiety, clenching her fists in concern for Seo-jun. Junhwan lets out a condescending laugh, mocking Seo-jun's naive sense of justice. He offers a twisted lesson, explaining the world is a place where the strong survive by crushing the weak. Seo-jun listens to the cynical lecture with a cold, unreadable expression. As Junhwan finishes his tirade, Seo-jun begins to speak, ready to share his own truth about the world. Seo-jun admits he once shared the prodigy's cynical worldview. He flashes back to the 9 grueling years he spent trying to become a pro hunter. During that time, he constantly hit the harsh, unyielding walls of reality. He resented his lack of talent and money, feeling his hard work only maintained his miserable life. He often wondered if he should have given up sooner, questioning the point of clinging to an impossible dream. Returning to the present, he asks the referee to take care of his injured friend, Mingi. He continues his internal monologue, admitting that fear and self-doubt were once his constant companions. He concludes that this is how most people lose hope when faced with their own limitations. But he challenges that despair, turning to face the prodigy with a defiant new perspective. He declares that Junhwan has no right to judge or dismiss the value of another person's struggle. The referee frantically tries to stop Seo-jun, warning him that he's violating the tournament rules. Ignoring the official's desperate pleas, Seo-jun continues his assault, swinging his spear with furious intent. Junhwan lets out a dismissive sigh, looking utterly bored by the unsanctioned challenge. A condescending smirk spreads across his face as he mocks Seo-jun's sense of justice. The two cadets finally clash, their weapons meeting in a blur of motion that stuns the crowd. Seo-jun glares at the prodigy, declaring that Junhwan is the real bug who needs to be put in his place. He seamlessly transitions from his spear attack into a powerful kick, aiming to overwhelm his opponent. Junhwan dodges the blow and leaps back, a manic grin spreading across his face as he relishes the fight. Seo-jun is forced on the defensive, parrying a flurry of lightning-fast strikes from the prodigy's sword. He grits his teeth, finally understanding why everyone holds the top prospect in such high regard. Junhwan unleashes a furious counterattack, his eyes glowing with manic energy. But Seo-jun clears his mind, deciding to trust his gut instincts instead of overthinking the fight. He moves on pure instinct, landing a solid strike directly on the prodigy's chest. Junhwan's eyes widen in utter disbelief, stunned that the so-called amateur actually hit him. The blow forces the top prospect back, creating a momentary gap between the two fighters. Enraged, the prodigy screams at the referee to stay out of it, declaring his own superiority. But as he glares at his opponent, he sees something unexpected in Seo-jun's eyes. The prodigy is shocked to see the gaze of a true predator staring back at him from the pest. He quickly masks his shock with a contemptuous sneer, dismissing Seo-jun's confidence as empty talk. Junhwan taunts him, eager to show Seo-jun the harsh reality of their power gap. The arena floor shatters as their weapons collide, the force of the impact rocking the entire stadium. Junhwan's arrogant smirk falters, shocked that the amateur is actually holding his ground. Seo-jun presses his advantage, questioning if the prodigy's strength is all just hype. He seamlessly transitions into another attack, forcing the top prospect onto the back foot. With every block and parry, Seo-jun feels himself growing more proficient, adapting to the prodigy's speed. Junhwan is stunned, realizing he's not just fighting an opponent. He's watching a monster evolve in real time. Their weapons meet again in a brutal exchange, the impact jarring both fighters. A massive shockwave erupts, sending both cadets skidding across the arena floor. The prodigy stares in disbelief, his mind reeling at the fact that he was actually pushed back. His rage ignites and Junhwan unleashes a torrent of red energy, refusing to be humiliated any further. Seo-jun's eyes widen in shock as he recognizes the prodigy's advanced aura sword technique. He knows that logically, he should run from an opponent with such overwhelming mana control. But his pride refuses to back down, feeling that retreat would invalidate all his hard work. A memory of a lecture surfaces, recalling a story of being surrounded by an unbeatable enemy. In the flashback, the hero Xiang Yu is asked why he charged into a battle he was destined to lose. The hero admits it was a lost cause, a feeling Seo-jun now understands as he faces his own despair. Despite the impossible odds, the hero reveals he fought for a simple, profound reason. Seo-jun tightens his grip, internalizing the lesson that some fights are necessary, regardless of the outcome. The lecture's final lesson echoes in his mind. Fight as if you can win, even when defeat seems inevitable. But the story ends with a grim reminder that even the mightiest heroes can fight with all their heart and still lose. The lecture concludes that it was this incredible fighting spirit that made the hero a king. Seo-jun channels the hero's legendary power, a spirit capable of overturning the entire world. He surges forward with newfound resolve, catching the prodigy completely off guard. Enraged, Junhwan screams that he is the predator, and Seo-jun is nothing but a pest to be crushed. The two fighters rush toward the center of the arena for one final decisive clash. The prodigy's fury peaks as he unleashes a final devastating strike intended to end it all. Seo-jun roars, swinging his staff with all his might to meet the attack head-on. Their weapons collide in a cataclysmic impact, unleashing a torrent of raw power. A blinding explosion of energy erupts from the clash, engulfing the entire arena. As the light fades, the officials are left stunned, unable to see the outcome through the thick cloud of dust. The dust cloud settles and the crowd anxiously waits to see who is left standing. The result is clear. Seo-jun stands victorious, his spear held high over the fallen prodigy. Leaning on his weapon for support, Seo-jun catches his breath, exhausted but triumphant. The once unbeatable Lee Junhwan lies on the ground, completely unconscious from the final blow. In the center of the shattered arena, the underdog stands alone, the undisputed winner of the tournament. Seo-jun looks down at his defeated opponent, his victory a silent testament to his incredible growth. The entire stadium erupts into a deafening roar as the crowd cheers for the unexpected champion. Onlookers scream Seo-jun's name, their initial shock giving way to pure, unadulterated awe. From her seat, Seo-jun is speechless, remembering he could barely handle a mana-imbued sword just weeks ago. She watches him in disbelief, struggling to process the impossible speed of his evolution. In the stands, Seo-jun's attention is drawn to the mysterious hooded figure from earlier. She recognizes the gambler, who now stares in stunned disbelief at Seo-jun's victory. The man's hood falls back, revealing a face contorted in shock as he trembles uncontrollably. Seo-jun finds his reaction excessive, as if the very laws of the universe have been shattered. A sudden realization dawns on her as she studies the shocked gambler. She remembers he was the one who placed the enormous bet on Seo-jun to win. But when she turns back to look, the mysterious high roller has completely vanished. Later, a bandaged Seo-jun walks alone, carrying his weapon and the weight of his victory. He sighs wearily, the aftermath of his intense battle clearly visible on his face. His moment of reflection is cut short as an official delivers some shocking news. He's been disqualified. The official lays out the reasons for his disqualification, citing his unsanctioned intervention and disregard for the rules. Seo-jun internally admits the official is right but questions why they didn't stop Junhwan's rampage sooner. He accepts his punishment, more curious about the consequences the arrogant prodigy will face. The official confirms Junhwan is also disqualified as medics carry the unconscious top prospect from the arena. The prodigy's dangerous use of an aura sword earns him a 5-year ban from the Pro Hunter exam. With the top contenders out, the final rankings are a joke, but Seo-jun only cares about his lecture progress. A system notification reveals a massive jump in his lecture progress, with one now over 50%. He reflects on the strange power he felt, realizing it was a direct result of his lecture progress. Lost in thought about his newfound power, he's abruptly stopped by a hand on his shoulder. He turns to find his sister Seo-yoon, who has finally caught up with him after the chaotic tournament. Seo-yoon anxiously checks on her brother, but he brushes off her concern, claiming to be tougher than he looks. She smiles, relieved that he seems to be in one piece after the brutal fight. Seo-yoon suddenly apologizes, but his sister is confused about what he's sorry for. He explains that his interference cost him the victory, but she quickly dismisses his apology. In fact, she turns the tables, asking if he's the one who's truly okay, leaving him baffled. She reminds him of his intense desire for the prize money, a thought that strikes him with sudden dread. The devastating reality of his lost winnings finally sinks in, sending him into a full-blown panic. He despairs over losing the funds for a new weapon and his next lecture pass, as Seo-yoon calmly questions his plans. He admits he was planning to buy a specific weapon, while his sister imagines him drooling over the expensive prize. She pats him on the back, seemingly unconcerned by his financial crisis, and tells him everything will be fine. Seo-yoon admits he regrets losing the money, but would have regretted his inaction even more. His sister watches him, her expression calm and full of understanding. Their conversation is cut short as Mingi sprints towards them, shouting Seo-yoon's name. The bandaged cadet waves frantically, finally catching up to his new comrade. Panting for breath, Mingi asks if they are leaving, and Seo-yoon confirms they are. Mingi looks up at Seo-yoon, who gently adjusts the bandage on his head. Overcome with gratitude, Mingi bows his head deeply in a sign of profound respect. He looks up with newfound resolve, asking if he too can become strong like Seo-yoon with enough hard work. Seo-yoon is taken aback by the earnest question, his expression turning serious. Mingi stares back, his eyes filled with a desperate hope as he awaits an answer. Seo-yoon bluntly tells Mingi that becoming strong like him will be difficult. He delivers a harsh dose of reality, explaining that dreams and hard work aren't always enough in their unforgiving world. To his surprise, Mingi seems to accept the crushing critique with a sad smile. He quickly tries to lighten the mood, waving goodbye and claiming he just wanted to say a final farewell. As Mingi turns to leave looking utterly dejected, Seo-yoon watches him go in silence. But just as he walks away, Seo-yoon calls out, telling him not to let anyone's opinion stop him. He acknowledges that the world will constantly tell Mingi he lacks talent and will never succeed. But with a sudden fire in his eyes, he insists that another person's opinion doesn't have to become his reality. Overwhelmed with emotion, Mingi can only listen as Seo-yoon tells him to simply pursue what he wishes for. With his spirit renewed, Mingi shouts a promise to visit again before running off into the distance. Seo-yoon walks away, slightly embarrassed by his own heroic meddling. His sister teases him, declaring herself his new #1 fan. Seo-yoon's expression turns serious as she regrets not trying to recruit him for her academy sooner. She watches him go, a thoughtful look on her face as she considers her next move. Seo-yoon continues on his way, unaware of his sister's internal debate. Moved by his actions, Seo-yoon decides to take matters into her own hands. She offers to buy him a new weapon as a substitute scholarship, directing him to her grandfather's workshop. The scene shifts to a traditional, serene workshop, bathed in the light of the setting sun. Meanwhile, the mysterious gambler from the tournament arrives at the same workshop. He asks to see the headmaster, only to be told the master is meditating and cannot be disturbed. The mysterious gambler insists it's an emergency, demanding to see the master immediately. He barges in, revealing himself as Seo Moonchol, a close aide to the Sword Saint. The headmaster turns, annoyed that his strict orders not to be disturbed were ignored. An immense pressure radiates from the headmaster, pinning Moonchol to the floor for his insolence. Struggling against the force, Moonchol urgently reports that Lady Seo-yoon attended the tournament. The headmaster's expression darkens, his full attention now fixed on the startling news. Moonchol confirms the report, his voice trembling as he explains her unexpected presence. Meanwhile, Seo-yoon excitedly suggests a new spear for her brother at the very same workshop. Moonchul adds that she seems to have recruited a new student as Seo-yoon thoughtfully rejects the weapon. The headmaster rises, declaring he will handle the matter personally and dismissing his aide's protests. The Sword Saint, Park Minchul, decides he must personally evaluate this mysterious new prospect. Back at the academy, Seo-jun is deep into his relentless training regimen, counting his reps. He grips his simple staff, pushing his body to its absolute limit with every swing. With a final powerful swing, he completes his 5,000th strike for the day. A system notification confirms his daily task is complete as he catches his breath, utterly spent. He feels a sense of accomplishment, completely unaware of his sister's disapproving glare. He feels an intense stare boring into the back of his head, but Seo-yun plays it off as his imagination. Seo-yun recalls their trip to the workshop, chiding him for being so picky yet leaving empty-handed. She sees right through his excuse, knowing he's not one to turn down a free upgrade. He silently laments his new refined taste, wondering why he can't just take the cash and run. He theorizes that unearned gains mess with causality, as his sister scolds him for passing up a once-in-a-lifetime offer. Unimpressed, Seo-yun changes the subject, her expression shifting to one of serious inquiry. She finally asks the question that's been on her mind: what mana cultivation technique does he use? Seo-yun notes that his impressive mana control suggests he's using a high-level technique, but she's never seen him practice, leading Seo-jun to a shocking realization: he hasn't learned one at all. A quick lesson explains that mana cultivation is the art of using one's internal energy more efficiently. These techniques are ranked by class, with the best hunters creating and patenting their own unique methods. Seo-jun asks if her academy teaches the Sword Saint's legendary technique, the very reason he wanted to join an elite school. She sheepishly admits her grandfather forbade it, which explains why her academy isn't exactly booming. Instead, she proudly reveals that she teaches a technique she developed herself, leaving her brother stunned. Seo-jun awkwardly deflects her question, internally questioning if his sister lacks talent or if his standards are just impossibly high. He silently agrees, recalling the stark difference in power he felt against Junhwan's superior mana control. He decides to find a lecture on mana cultivation, while his sister assumes his silence is just an attempt to dodge her question. Deciding not to press the issue, she turns to leave, telling him to continue his training. He calls out to her, confused as she explains she has some business to take care of. She playfully snaps her fingers, reminding him to lock the doors before heading out on her mysterious errand. He waves her off, then immediately turns his focus back to the crucial task of choosing his next lecture. Meanwhile, Seo-yun storms off, flustered by her brother's teasing and wondering when his mysterious mentor will finally appear. Back in the training room, Seo-jun pulls up a new lecture, which begins by defining mana within a world governed by causality. The lesson explains that mana is the very power used to defy and even overturn the fundamental laws of their reality. The lecture introduces the legendary Archmage Merlin, who promises to teach Seo-jun how to truly see the world. The sheer weight of the lesson's concept seems to physically jolt him. Merlin's condescending tone only adds to his worry, as he realizes this will be a completely different kind of mental challenge. The Archmage quickly cuts the theory short, deciding it's time for a practical application. Merlin declares that the only way for Seo-jun to truly learn is by doing it himself. A new daily task appears, demanding he manifest 1,000 mana orbs, a feat he doesn't even know how to begin. Despite his uncertainty, he gives it a shot, focusing his will to draw out his inner energy. He can easily feel the mana swirling around him, but finds himself completely unable to give it any form. The lecture clarifies that mana is the bridge between imagination and reality, a tool to bend the world to one's will. A sudden spark of insight hits Seo-jun as he begins to grasp the true, limitless potential of this power. He finally grasps the concept of manifesting mana, giving physical form to his internal energy. A bright light flashes between his hands as the power begins to take shape for the first time. He successfully creates his first mana orb, though it's barely a flicker of unstable energy. But his creation is a wobbly, misshapen blob, far from the perfect sphere he imagined. Even the spectral Archmage scoffs at the pathetic display, questioning if it even counts toward his task. Undeterred, Seo-jun resolves to master this new skill, confident he'll improve with practice. His concentration is shattered by the sudden arrival of a powerful, uninvited guest. Startled, Seo-jun turns to face the imposing figure, completely unaware of who he's facing. He instantly recognizes the legendary Sword Saint, who has come to personally evaluate his granddaughter's new student. The Sword Saint's gaze falls on the mana orb, and he realizes this unassuming kid possesses an exceptionally rare talent. The Sword Saint concludes there's only one sinister reason for such a talent to join a failing academy. He unleashes a wave of pressure, demanding to know the identity of this mysterious student. But Seo-jun is completely starstruck, thrilled to finally meet the legendary hunter in person. He casually mentions that Seo-yun just left, a familiar address that only deepens the Sword Saint's suspicion. Seo-jun's innocent question about Seo-yun only makes the legendary hunter more wary of his true intentions. The Sword Saint questions why Seo-jun is completely unaffected by his intimidating aura. He reveals he just unleashed enough killing intent to paralyze a top-tier hunter, yet Seo-jun remains standing. Seo-jun realizes his unwavering heart skill must be protecting him as the Sword Saint demands to know his true objective. Playing dumb, Seo-jun asks what the master could possibly mean by such an accusation. The Sword Saint closes in, his hand on his sword, demanding to know why a prodigy like him is targeting his granddaughter. The Sword Saint intensifies his pressure, demanding Seo-jun reveal his true intentions. Seo-jun panics, desperately trying to explain that the master has the wrong idea. The Sword Saint's cold gaze makes Seo-jun realize he's in serious danger. Without warning, the master swings his weapon, forcing Seo-jun to dodge the swift attack. The legendary hunter's expression is grim, showing he's not just testing the boy. Seo-jun stares in disbelief, completely baffled by the sudden aggressive interrogation. Meanwhile, Seo-yun arrives at the workshop, only to find her grandfather is missing. She asks an attendant for his whereabouts, but no one seems to know where he went. A worried expression crosses her face, as she had hoped to discuss Seo-jun with him. She wonders where the Sword Saint could have possibly gone, completely unaware of the confrontation unfolding. The Sword Saint pins Seo-jun with immense pressure, demanding he reveal his true purpose. Seo-jun nervously gulps, completely bewildered by the legendary hunter's intense interrogation. Meanwhile, Seo-yun's search hits a dead end as she learns her grandfather is missing from the workshop. An attendant confirms the headmaster is away and suggests contacting Councilman Seo for his location. She internally frets, realizing that after the tournament, keeping Seo-jun's existence a secret is no longer an option. Just as she decides to face the issue directly, an attendant announces an unexpected arrival. Councilman Seo himself appears, greeting her with a wide grin and remarking on her rare presence. He declares the timing perfect, explaining he was about to contact her for an important reason. The councilman's expression turns serious as he explains the reason for his visit. He then reveals the headmaster's destination is her academy, and Seo-yun's eyes widen in horror as she realizes what's happening. Without a word, Seo-yun bolts from the workshop, her face a mask of pure panic. Her sudden exit leaves the councilman and the attendant completely bewildered. She races against time, realizing she let her guard down, and her grandfather has arrived sooner than expected. Her expression hardens with resolve, knowing she absolutely cannot let her brother and grandfather meet alone. Back at the academy, the tense confrontation between the unsuspecting Seo-jun and the grim Sword Saint is already underway. The air crackles with tension as the two stand on opposite ends of the training room, her worst fears realized. Seo-jun stares back, completely baffled by the sudden hostility from the legendary hunter. He realizes the master just attacked him with his sword still in its scabbard, a testament to his immense power. Seo-jun deduces the attack was a warning, meant to restrain him rather than cause serious harm. The Sword Saint demands to know his true identity, but Seo-jun desperately tries to explain it's all a misunderstanding. Seo-jun is stunned as the master points out his ability to manifest mana and his swift movements. The Sword Saint dismisses his pleas, refusing to believe it's a misunderstanding after what he's witnessed. He unleashes another powerful strike with his scabbard, accusing Seo-jun of being a liar. Seo-jun is forced back, desperately trying to de-escalate the situation as the master's aura darkens. He internally panics, realizing he said something terribly wrong but unable to pinpoint his mistake. The Sword Saint's eyes glow with power, his patience gone as he prepares to get serious. Resigning himself to the confrontation, Seo-jun braces for whatever comes next. He quickly assesses that while the master isn't listening, his movements aren't meant to be fatal. Seo-jun understands that if the legendary hunter truly wanted him dead, he would have been defeated instantly. The narrative reinforces the Sword Saint's immense power, dubbing him heaven above the heavens. Seo-jun realizes that despite the hostility, he's facing the very ideal he's been striving for. Instead of fear, He sees this life-threatening encounter as a golden opportunity for growth. With a determined grin, he grips his staff, channeling his energy and preparing to face the legend. The Sword Saint watches the young man's shift in attitude with a critical, unimpressed glare. He notes that Seo-jun's entire aura has transformed, now radiating a palpable, focused power. The master recalls that in all his years, only one other person has ever met his gaze with such unwavering ferocity. The Sword Saint deduces that this young man must possess an extraordinary level of skill. He unleashes another blindingly fast strike, demanding to know the true motive behind approaching his granddaughter. Seo-jun barely deflects the blow, realizing with a jolt that the master's attacks are too fast to see or even sense. A cold sweat breaks out as the sheer, overwhelming difference in their power levels becomes terrifyingly clear. The Sword Saint's eyes glow with immense power, his aura pressing down on the young fighter. Seo-jun trembles, realizing even the master's simplest strike is on a completely different plane of existence. Despite the odds, he pushes himself, wanting to see just how long he can withstand the legend's assault. He moves in a desperate blur, frantically defending against the Sword Saint's relentless yet casual attacks. The master effortlessly parries the blows with his sheathed sword, his expression one of utter boredom. Seo-jun dodges another strike, his focus absolute as he tries to find an opening in the perfect defense. With a dismissive glance, the Sword Saint sends him flying, unimpressed by the trivial display of skill. Lying on the floor, Seo-jun refuses to give up, feeling he's on the verge of a breakthrough if he can just push a little harder. The master warns that simple tricks are useless as Seo-jun scrambles back to his feet for another attempt. Coughing up blood, Seo-jun understands his only chance is to strike now, while the legend is still holding back. He resolves to put everything on the line, knowing he has only one chance to land a decisive blow. But with the overwhelming power gap, he desperately searches for a way to create an opening. Using his staff for leverage, Seo-jun twists his body, breaking free from the master's powerful grip. He spins away using the momentum to create distance and prepare for a counterattack. A lesson from the Archmage Merlin flashes in his mind, revealing how to use mana to bend reality itself. He channels his energy, attempting to manifest that impossible concept into a single, powerful strike. Gritting his teeth, Seo-jun pours every last bit of his strength into this one desperate gamble. He unleashes a massive wave of raw power, sending a devastating attack toward the Sword Saint. The attack dissipates, leaving Seo-jun on his knees, completely drained and seemingly defeated. But the Sword Saint stares in disbelief at a fresh scratch on his scabbard, proof that the boy's attack actually connected. Seo-jun wipes his mouth, internally cursing the old man for the painful blow. The Sword Saint roars, convinced Seo-jun has revealed his malicious intent, much to the boy's confusion. Seo-jun's mention of Seo-yun's name only fuels the master's rage, shattering his last bit of composure. A colossal dragon of pure energy materializes behind the master, who now advances with lethal intent. The legendary hunter's patience is gone, and he now intends to end the confrontation permanently. Gripping his staff, Seo-jun realizes with dawning horror that this fight is no longer a test. But just as the master moves to strike, Seo-yun bursts into the room, screaming for them to stop. She places herself between the two fighters, demanding an explanation for the chaos. Panting for breath, she glares at the Sword Saint, her anger palpable. Her gaze shifts to her brother, her concern growing as she notices his bruised and battered state. The Sword Saint questions Seo-jun's manliness, but the boy retorts that gender doesn't matter when facing a legend. Enraged by the backtalk, the Sword Saint prepares to strike again, but Seo-jun cheekily hides behind his sister. Seo-yun looks on in utter disbelief, completely stunned by her brother's audacious behavior. She realizes she's never seen anyone stand up to her grandfather, as Seo-jun boldly demands an explanation for the assault. Finally taking control, Seo-yun steps between them, ordering her grandfather to stand down. She then turns to her brother to apologize for the ordeal, but he casually brushes off his injuries. Despite his protest, she bows deeply, promising a full explanation for the misunderstanding. Her profound apology leaves Seo-jun speechless, the gravity of the situation finally hitting him. The Sword Saint watches the exchange with a stern, unreadable expression, his arms crossed in disapproval. Seo-jun decides a hospital visit is in order, as Seo-yun insists on covering all his medical expenses. With the situation resolved, Seo-yun prepares to leave with her grandfather, thanking Seo-jun for his understanding. As she turns away, Her expression reveals a deep-seated worry about the conversation to come. She finally musters the courage to face the Sword Saint, calling out to her grandfather. The Sword Saint declares it's time for a serious discussion, the air thick with unspoken tension. They stand in a stark, empty hall, the physical distance between them mirroring their emotional one. Internally, she struggles with her resolve, remembering her grandfather's harsh warning to stay away from the suspicious boy. Finding her voice, she desperately tries to defend her brother, insisting he's not a suspicious person. The Sword Saint clenches his fist, angrily dismissing her defense and questioning what she could possibly know. A lifetime of being belittled flashes through her mind, recalling how her grandfather has always ignored her opinions. She reflects that even her academy, a supposed act of independence, was never truly free from his suffocating influence. She remembers how her grandfather's meddling drove away every student she ever recruited. Understanding his paranoia, she had always let them leave without a fight. The Sword Saint gives her an ultimatum, demanding she dismiss Seo-jun by the next day. But for the first time, a defiant fire ignites in her eyes as she refuses. She boldly declares that Seo-jun is different, catching the legendary hunter off guard. Her grandfather is stunned into silence by her passionate, unyielding refusal. With newfound conviction, she decides she will not let this promising student be driven away. She finally challenges his lifelong authority, questioning his right to dictate her choices. Seo-jun fiercely reminds him that the academy is her domain, not his to command. She internally clarifies that this isn't about personal attachment to Seo-jun. She admits that watching her brother gives her a strange, compelling feeling she can't quite explain. This mysterious connection makes her want to stay by his side, to see where his journey leads. Her frustration boils over as she accuses her grandfather of throwing a tantrum over something he doesn't understand. A flashback reveals her own uncertainty, admitting she doesn't yet know the reason for her conviction. But she declares that her very uncertainty is the reason she must find the answer for herself. Seo-jun finally proclaims that she can no longer live under his suffocating shadow, nor does she want to. Her eyes burn with resolve as she confronts the reality of his constant interference in her life. The Sword Saint listens to her impassioned speech, his expression remaining cold and unmoving. Having said her piece, her defiant expression softens, the emotional outburst taking its toll. She bows her head, apologizing for her tone but not for her words, leaving her grandfather to contemplate her rebellion. With her final words delivered, Seo-jun turns and leaves the room, refusing to bend to his will this time. Left alone, the Sword Saint watches her go, her name echoing in the heavy silence. He reflects on her unprecedented defiance, realizing he's never seen her stand up for herself so fiercely. A painful memory surfaces of a catastrophic dungeon break where a monstrous beast brought chaos to the city. An aide had burst in with urgent, terrible news interrupting the Master's Day. The Sword Saint's world shattered as he learned the incident had involved his own son. He recalls the profound grief that followed, a weight he has carried ever since. His memory focuses on a young, orphaned Seo-jun, left alone in the wake of the tragedy. He remembers standing before his son's memorial, facing his now solitary granddaughter. In that moment, he resolved to ensure she would have the strength to protect herself, a decision that shaped both their lives. The Sword Saint reveals his strictness was a misguided attempt to protect her. He recalls forcing her through a grueling regimen, pushing her to become a fighter against her will. He had dismissed her personal ambitions, believing only his path could keep her safe. In his fear, he refused to listen, demanding she simply follow his orders. His suffocating control created a deep, unspoken rift between them over the years. He admits to himself that he knowingly ignored the growing emotional distance. He sighs, finally accepting the bitter consequences of his actions. Left alone in the hall, he realizes his efforts have only led to her complete rebellion. The scene transitions to the next day, a quiet morning after the storm. Elsewhere, Seo-jun walks the streets, still trying to make sense of the chaotic encounter. Seo-jun walks with renewed confidence, feeling ready to tackle his daily tasks. He nervously recalls the Sword Saint's terrifying assault, relieved he only escaped with bruises. He admits that if his sister had been any later, the confrontation would have ended far more grimly. His expression turns somber as he reflects on the difficult backstory he now knows about Seo-jun. A flashback shows him reeling from the events of the previous night. He remembers Seo-jun calling to explain her strained relationship with her grandfather. She had also revealed the tragic fate of her previous students, who were all driven away. While he knows she held back details, he finally understands the reason for the Sword Saint's paranoia. Still, he arrives at the academy, thinking that understanding the man's motives doesn't excuse the unprovoked attack. He resolves to get an apology from the legendary hunter to ensure it never happens again. He notices his lecture progress spiked after the beatdown, grimly deciding it's not a training method he'd like to repeat. On second thought, he greedily considers that another small beating might be worth the incredible gains. He enters to find the Sword Saint waiting for him, his gaze intense and unreadable. The legendary hunter gestures for him to enter, his stern expression showing this is no friendly chat. Cautiously, Seo-jun approaches the master, who sits waiting in the middle of the stark room. As the master invites him to sit, Seo-jun nervously wonders if he's about to get another lesson. The Sword Saint cuts straight to the point, stating he knows Seo-jun made a deal with Seo-yun. The two sit facing each other, a tense silence hanging between them as their weapons rest on the floor. The master presses for more, but Seo-jun insists there's nothing to hide, annoyed by the constant suspicion. The Sword Saint senses the boy isn't lying, but can't comprehend how a mere cadet could possess such unbelievable power. The Sword Saint admits that instead of suspicion, he feels a strange anger rising. Annoyed, Seo-jun tries to leave for training, but the master has a sudden idea. The Sword Saint decides to observe Seo-jun's training, hoping to uncover his secrets. The master watches with a grim expression, convinced of one thing. He's certain the boy is unhinged, watching him stare at a blank phone screen for hours. The Sword Saint finally breaks the silence, asking if Seo-jun is meditating. He lectures Seo-jun on the importance of mental training, calling his method a bit excessive. The master is internally baffled by Seo-jun's apparent lack of interest in his wisdom. To test him, the Sword Saint offers a personal lesson, and Seo-jun's eyes light up with interest. Just as the master's ego is stroked, Seo-jun politely declines the offer, leaving him stunned. Seo-jun asks the master to wait, explaining that his presence is disrupting his progress. Their tense standoff is interrupted by Seo-yun, who arrives to discuss the previous day's incident. She stops dead in her tracks, horrified to find her grandfather already there with Seo-jun. Seo-yun marches up to the Sword Saint, demanding to know why he's returned to bother her student. She warns him against bullying Seo-jun again, but the master whispers that the boy isn't in his right mind. The Sword Saint complains to his granddaughter that Seo-jun actually rejected his personal teachings. He concludes that Seo-jun's behavior is just plain weird, while the boy remains focused on his task. Seo-yun calmly asks what's so strange, privately thinking her grandfather's reaction is nothing new. She admits that she also used to find Seo-jun's methods strange, but now understands him better. Taking charge, she walks forward with the master in tow, announcing her return to Seo-jun. Seo-yun walks past her grandfather, her attention solely on Seo-jun as she asks about his condition. The Sword Saint's expression sours, internally grumbling about his intense dislike for the young man. He watches from a distance, noting the genuine, radiant smile on his granddaughter's face as she talks to Seo-jun. The master can't comprehend what could be so amusing, as Seo-yun continues to laugh freely with the cadet. A startling thought strikes the legendary hunter. He can't recall ever seeing his granddaughter smile so genuinely. Her uninhibited joy is a stark contrast to the guarded, serious woman he's always known. This simple observation fuels a sudden, intense surge of protective anger within the master. He clenches his fist, convinced this scallywag is somehow manipulating his precious granddaughter. Just as his rage boils over, Councilman Seo bursts into the room, calling out to him urgently. The master turns, annoyed by the interruption, as his aide breathlessly explains he has urgent news. The aide reports that the Order of Truth has requested a meeting, but the Sword Saint dismisses them with contempt. He scoffs at the request, declaring that if the matter is so important, they can come to him directly. The councilman clarifies that the request comes directly from Circalia, a name that immediately grabs the master's attention. With a nervous expression, the aide adds that Circalia has another, more specific request. He reveals that Kalia has specifically requested the presence of Kim Seo-jun, sending a shockwave through the room. Seo-jun points to himself in disbelief, utterly baffled as to why this powerful figure would summon him. The unexpected summons leaves everyone standing in stunned silence, with Seo-jun at the center of the mystery. The Sword Saint's suspicion immediately returns, accusing Seo-jun of being a spy for the Order of Truth. Seo-yoon recalls seeing a suspicious hooded figure at the tournament, wondering if he's connected to this new development. Even the Sword Saint finds it strange, as Seo-jun and the councilman can offer no explanation for the mysterious summons. Seo-jun casually asks if he really has to go, shocking everyone with his nonchalant attitude. A quick lesson explains the Order of Truth's 7 apostles hold power equivalent to heads of state. The councilman adds that Circalia is a successor to an apostle, making his personal summons an unprecedented event. Unimpressed, Seo-jun dismisses the summons, stating he'd rather spend his time training than meet a stranger. The councilman wonders aloud if this is why Circalia is so highly regarded, piquing everyone's curiosity. As the Sword Saint demands an explanation, the aide reveals that Kalia predicted Seo-jun would refuse. The councilman delivers Kalia's counteroffer, a payment of $100,000 just for showing up. Seo-jun's demeanor instantly shifts, his eyes lighting up at the mention of the exact sum he needs. He internally panics, wondering how this mysterious figure could possibly know his precise financial situation. The scene provides context on the Order of Truth, a religious group that worships truth itself as their god. The lesson explains the Order of Truth is led by the mysterious Grand Voice and their 7 apostles. Once dismissed as a mere cult, they rose to prominence by fighting alongside heroes during the Great Cataclysm. Their efforts were instrumental in restoring peace and allowing humanity to rebuild from the brink. Their defining moment came against a monster so powerful it was dubbed the Second Cataclysm. The Grand Voice and the 7 apostles were the only ones capable of defeating the beast, cementing their legendary status. The scene shifts to the present, arriving at a lavish hotel on the outskirts of Seoul for the meeting. The Sword Saint begrudgingly introduces Seo-jun to a cloaked member of the Order. The cloaked figure already knows Seo-jun's name, confirming his identity with an unnerving calmness. He is then led down a hallway, told that the mysterious Sir Kalia is waiting for him. Seo-jun connects the dots, realizing Kalia must be the man from the arena who knew the exact amount of his lost prize money. Seo-jun follows, still trying to puzzle out why Kalia was watching him and why he wants to meet. The guide leads them to a room, leaving Seo-jun to wonder if his secret academy has been discovered. They are left in a lavish suite, with Seo-jun determined to get answers from this mysterious host. The Sword Saint grumbles, annoyed but unsurprised that the influential figure isn't there to greet them. Seo-jun asks the master if he's already familiar with Sir Kalia, trying to gauge the situation. He's stunned to learn that even the legendary Sword Saint has never met Kalia in person. The master explains he only knows the apostle from the Cataclysm, not the successor he's about to meet. The mention of the Cataclysm reminds Seo-jun of the sheer gravity of the man sitting before him. Intrigued, he asks about the even more enigmatic Grand Voice, leader of the Order of Truth. Just as the master is about to answer, a menacing, cloaked figure with a dark aura materializes behind him. Seo-jun admits he's never met the Grand Voice either, his curiosity piqued. The Sword Saint reveals that even he has only ever seen the legendary figure from afar. Their conversation is cut short by the sudden arrival of their mysterious host. A woman in elegant armor enters the room, calmly greeting the 2 surprised men. The Sword Saint glares, unimpressed by her late arrival after summoning them. The woman, revealed to be Kalia, stands with an air of serene confidence. A title identifies her as the successor to the Apostle of Chastity, a figure of immense power. She calmly explains her tardiness was due to a ritual of purification to properly deliver her god's words. The Sword Saint scoffs, completely unimpressed by her pious excuse. Kalia formally introduces herself as she prepares to hear from Seo-jun. Seo-jun cuts to the chase, demanding to know how this powerful woman knows who he is. Kalia decides a bit of context is needed before they get to the main topic. She reveals that a member of her order was observing him during the recent academy tournament. The glowing report from her follower piqued her curiosity, prompting this very meeting. Seo-jun remains skeptical, finding it hard to believe he was summoned for such a simple reason. He presses for her true motive, but Kalia simply offers a serene, knowing smile. She calmly invites them to sit, ready to finally reveal the real purpose of her invitation. Once they are settled, she drops a bombshell, proposing a joint dungeon reconnaissance mission. With unnerving calm, Kalia clarifies that her request is specifically for the Sword Saint's assistance. The master angrily refuses, but she counters with a cryptic warning that he knows their old fight is far from over. The Sword Saint's eyes widen, her cryptic warning hitting a very specific nerve. She reveals a distortion has been reported in a Korean dungeon, a term that clearly resonates with the master. He tries to dismiss her, but she firmly states the Order of Truth has already decided to investigate. The master falls into a grim silence, weighing the grave implications of her words. His eyes narrow as he realizes this mission was her true reason for coming to Korea all along. He deduces this is also a political move to solidify her position as the apostle's successor. Kalia calmly admits he's right, while Seo-jun internally scoffs at her shameless ambition. The Sword Saint shifts gears, demanding to know what she's willing to offer for his cooperation. She acknowledges he's a man who wants for nothing, making him difficult to bargain with. Kalia then plays her trump card, mentioning his granddaughter's academy and implying the Order's support, sending a jolt of alarm through the master. The Sword Saint unleashes a wave of pressure, his anger palpable after Kalia's threat. Seo-jun feels the terrifying pressure, realizing this is the master's true killing intent. He issues a chilling warning, telling Kalia to keep his granddaughter out of her schemes. Kalia, however, remains unfazed, calmly admitting she made a mistake with a serene smile. Her apology does little to quell his rage, as he clenches his fist in silent fury. She offers a new deal. In exchange for his help, she will grant him one request of his choosing. To prove her sincerity, she offers to swear a binding oath in the name of the Order of Truth. Kalia presses her advantage, knowing that now that he's aware of the distortion, he can't simply ignore it. The Sword Saint reluctantly agrees, and a brilliant light envelops them as they perform the ritual of the vow of truth. With the master's cooperation secured, Kalia turns her attention to a very nervous-looking Seo-jun. Kalia cuts straight to the point, offering to sponsor Seo-jun on behalf of the Order of Truth. He points out his academy affiliation, but she clarifies their support would supplement his current training, not replace it. Wary of the offer, Seo-jun immediately asks what he'd owe them in return. She smiles serenely, insisting that simply having a relationship with him is more than enough for the Order. Seo-jun internally scoffs, knowing that such a generous offer must have hidden strings attached. He decides to test her, agreeing to consider the sponsorship if she answers one of his questions truthfully. He leans in, preparing to ask the one question that has been bothering him since the tournament. But he pauses, realizing he has no way to confirm if her answer is true or just another manipulation. Deciding to take a more direct approach, he suddenly lunges forward with a flash of light. He shoves his glowing phone in her face, a bizarre move that leaves the powerful successor completely stunned. With a smirk, Seo-jun demands to know what Kalia sees on his smartphone screen. The powerful successor stares at the device, her expression unreadable as she remains silent. The screen displays a lecture on the nature of the soul, a secret only Seo-jun can perceive. Completely baffled, Kalia questions his bizarre interrogation as he presses for an answer. He leans in, noting that while his question is simple, the answer seems incredibly difficult for her. Seo-jun sits back with a shrug, feigning indifference if she chooses not to respond. After a tense moment, Kalia finally answers, stating she sees only a black screen. She confirms her answer, and Seo-jun calmly accepts it, his test now complete. With a confident smile, Kalia asks if he will now positively consider her sponsorship offer. Seo-jun gives a slight nod, agreeing to think about her proposal, his true intentions hidden. With a confident smirk, Seo-jun flatly rejects her sponsorship offer. Left alone, Kalia turns to the window, silently processing the unexpected rejection. She debriefs a cloaked aide who reports that he found no distortions within Seo-jun. Kalia presses for certainty, but her subordinate swears on the Order that his assessment is correct. Internally, she concludes that despite his skills, there was nothing truly remarkable about Kim Seo-jun. Yet she can't shake the unsettling feeling from his bizarre and aggressive smartphone test. Her aide suggests the matter is strange enough to be reported to another apostle. Kalia dismisses the idea, shifting focus to the dungeon mission and the status of other heroes. She grows concerned, learning that two key figures, the Dark Saint and the Soul Saint, are still missing. The scene cuts to a mysterious figure holding a blank screen, hinting at the identity of one of the unseen saints. The Sword Saint demands to know why Seo-jun rejected such a generous offer from Kalia. Seo-jun explains that dealing with her left a bad taste in his mouth, much to the master's confusion. He internally concludes that Kalia's inability to see his screen proves she has no link to his secret academy. He clarifies he can't trust someone who hides their true intentions, unlike his honest sister, Seo-yoon. Changing the subject, Seo-jun asks the master to explain the dungeon distortion Kalia mentioned earlier. The Sword Saint explains it's a phenomenon where a dungeon's magical power becomes warped. This distortion causes a dangerous mismatch between a dungeon's predicted and actual difficulty. He reveals these events can lead to sudden rank increases or even premature dungeon breaks, shocking Seo-jun. The master adds that while rare now, such distortions were a common and deadly threat during the Cataclysm. Seo-jun is left bewildered by the revelation, realizing the world is far more dangerous than he knew. Seo-jun questions Kalia's cryptic words, but the Sword Saint dismisses them as a misunderstanding. The master walks off, curtly telling Seo-jun his destination is none of his concern. He continues to walk away, putting distance between himself and the young cadet. The Sword Saint stops to issue a final, stern warning against making any moves on his granddaughter. Seo-jun cheekily interprets the threat as a sign of acknowledgement, much to the master's annoyance. The boy's taunt about pushing Seo-yoon away strikes a nerve, snapping the master's last thread of patience. Seeing the master's clenched fist, Seo-jun panics and makes a hasty retreat. Left alone, the Sword Saint fumes, muttering about the insolent young man. Seo-jun reflects on the master's tendency to solve every problem with brute force. He returns to the academy, determined to get stronger, and finds Seo-yoon surprised by his early arrival. Seo-yoon asks about her grandfather, and Seo-jun explains the master has already departed. She nervously asks what was said, but he reassures her that her fears were unfounded. She apologizes for her grandfather's overbearing nature, but Seo-jun seems unfazed. He internally admits that while the Sword Saint's methods are flawed, his heart is in the right place. His unexpected understanding leaves Seo-yoon momentarily speechless. Seo-jun casually jokes that he's willing to take a few more lessons, as long as he gets paid for it. He immediately regrets his flippant remark, but Seo-yoon just gives him a knowing, amused smile. An awkward silence falls between them after she expresses her sincere gratitude. Seo-yoon breaks the tension, suddenly recalling his desperate need for money. She reminds him of his constant, loud declarations about needing $100,000, leaving him utterly mortified. He realizes his money problems are just the tip of the iceberg, as Seo-yoon reveals she's found a solution. She presents him with an opportunity, the 24th Dungeon Sweep Contest. Seo-jun is baffled by the concept, while Seo-yoon stands ready to explain. His eyes widen as he sees the details, especially the massive $300,000 prize for first place. She clarifies it's a competition to clear out neglected dungeons, a concept he still struggles to grasp. The reason, she explains, is simple greed. Pro hunters ignore dungeons that aren't profitable. She laments how modern hunters chase profit, unlike the heroes of the Cataclysm who fought out of duty. These neglected dungeons become ticking time bombs, threatening to break and unleash monsters on civilians. While government hunters initially handled the problem, using high-level pros for such minor threats was deemed a waste of resources. A comical illustration shows the massive power gap, highlighting the absurdity of sending elite hunters after trivial foes. Seo-yoon reveals the government's ultimate solution to the problem. Seo-jun realizes she's talking about the dungeon sweep contest, and she confirms with a confident smile. She explains it's a clever way to use cadets as manpower, while also evaluating their academies. Seo-yoon confidently tells Seo-jun she believes he can easily take first place. He realizes the contest offers both a massive prize and a chance to boost his lecture progress. Seeing no reason to refuse, he eagerly accepts, and Seo-yoon happily prepares to register him. He's touched, realizing she proactively searched for this opportunity just for him. A flicker of doubt crosses his face as he considers the potential pitfalls. He recalls the last competition's unhinged rival, reminding himself that nothing is ever as easy as it seems. With renewed resolve, he vows to win this time, motivated by the massive prize money. Seo-jun shifts his focus, asking Seo-yoon to explain the specific rules of the contest. She details the week-long event where the government releases a list of dungeons for participants to clear. Seo-yoon clarifies that cadets can only reserve one dungeon at a time and must clear it within 10 hours to prevent hoarding. He quickly deduces that the entire competition boils down to one crucial factor: speed. Seo-jun expresses concern, realizing that the emphasis on speed creates a new, unexpected problem. He points out the logistical nightmare of dealing with monster corpses when time is of the essence. Seo-yoon facepalms, suddenly understanding the absurdly frugal direction his thoughts have taken. She asks in disbelief if he's seriously planning to process the monster remains himself, and he sees no issue with it. He argues that small profits add up, while she reminds him the massive grand prize should be his only focus. So-yoon shakes her head, completely exasperated by his extreme penny-pinching logic. Seo-joon reconsiders his stubbornness, realizing the massive prize money is the real goal. He stops So-yoon, suddenly shifting his focus back to the competition strategy. With a confident smile, he asks for a detailed breakdown of the contest rules. The scene jumps forward a few days, bringing them to the morning of the competition. He checks his phone, noting his lecture progress has skyrocketed, though some have hit a wall. Seo-joon deduces he needs a new approach to break through the 10% milestones in his training. Meeting up with So-yoon, he confirms he's installed the competition app and is ready to go. She wonders if the helper he hired is lost, but he assures her the person has an amazing sense of direction. He even jokes that the helper's navigation skills surpass the Sword Saint's, much to Seo-yoon's surprise. Just then, Seo-joon spots their imposing-looking helper and eagerly waves them over. Their helper, a burly man named Manchul, arrives right on time, teasing Seo-joon for being so loud. So-joon grins, cheekily replying that he didn't want to risk being late and hearing a lecture. Manchul gets straight to business, asking for his instructions for the day's work. A flashback reveals Manchul's surprise when he received a call from Seo-joon a few days prior. He had clarified Seo-joon's unusual request to act as a driver and corpse hauler for the contest. Seo-joon had detailed the plan, explaining Manchul's role would be to dismantle the monsters while he handled the transport. Manchul had voiced his doubts, questioning if just the two of them could possibly be fast enough to compete. But Seo-joon had insisted, confidently stating that he specifically needed Manchul's expertise for the job. Seo-joon's internal thoughts reveal his complete trust in Manchul's unparalleled dismantling skills to maximize their earnings. Back in the present, an alert on Seo-joon's phone signals that the Dungeon Sweep contest has officially begun. The Dungeon Sweep contest officially begins, and the team looks on with anticipation. With a quick farewell to Seo-yoon, Seo-joon declares it's time for him and Manchul to get to work. As they approach the truck, Seo-joon confirms that Manchul is fully briefed on the competition's rules. Once inside the truck, Seo-joon reiterates their strategy, emphasizing that speed is everything. He breaks it down into two crucial elements: the speed of the raid and the speed of travel between dungeons. Confident in his clearing speed, he dismisses the low-level monsters, focusing solely on optimizing their travel time. Manchul listens carefully, processing the logic behind Seo-joon's unconventional plan. To solve the travel problem, Seo-joon hands his phone to Manchul, showing him a complete list of contest dungeons. He then tasks the stunned Manchul with plotting the fastest possible route between all locations. Seo-joon expresses his complete faith, declaring Manchul's skills are far superior to any GPS, leaving the veteran driver speechless. With a confident command, Manchul puts the pedal to the metal and their massive truck roars to life. Elsewhere, a contest supervisor named Go Soo-jin yawns, expecting a slow and uneventful day. She notes the first contestant, Kim Seo-joon from the unknown Dream Academy, has entered the dungeon. Based on his obscure academy, she assumes he's a mediocre cadet and settles in for a long wait. Outside, Manchul waits patiently, recalling how the supervisor let him stay after confirming he wouldn't interfere. The supervisor watches Manchul, puzzled by his role and wondering if he's just a simple driver. Suddenly, Seo-joon pops out of the portal, telling Manchul to get ready, leaving the supervisor completely stunned. As Manchul remarks on his incredible speed, the supervisor leaps up, accusing Seo-joon of violating the rules. Seo-joon calmly confirms he knows the rules, then casually explains he's already captured all the monsters. He declares the raid complete, inviting the dumbfounded supervisor to see for herself. The supervisor erupts in disbelief, refusing to accept that he could have cleared the dungeon so quickly. She steps inside and is stunned into silence by the sight of the completely subdued dungeon. Her mind reels, unable to comprehend how he finished the raid in a mere 10 minutes. Completely baffled, she asks what he's doing as he casually slings a monster over his shoulder. He then begins hauling the creatures out two at a time, a sight she can only describe as insane. Outside, Manchul greets him, questioning his relentless pursuit of profit. Seo-jun simply drops off his haul, cryptically mentioning he can't miss his lectures. Manchul expertly assesses the monster, estimating a dismantling time of just 15 seconds each. Thrilled with the speed, Seo-jun tells him to start, horrifying the supervisor who realizes their plan. She frantically objects, but Seo-jun sees absolutely no issue with their on-site processing. The supervisor reluctantly admits there's no rule against their plan, while Seo-jun calmly asks if there's an issue. To maximize efficiency, Seo-jun starts doing squats with monster corpses while waiting for the dismantling. Manchul works with terrifying speed, his blade a blur as he expertly processes the monster parts. The supervisor can only watch in horror, completely unprepared for the gruesome efficiency of their operation. With the job done, the duo sprints off to their truck, already focused on the next, most optimal target. Left in a cloud of dust, the supervisor stands speechless, trying to comprehend the chaos she just witnessed. In the truck, Seo-jun and Manchul share a laugh, thrilled with their kill two birds with one stone approach. Elsewhere, another contest supervisor enjoys a peaceful moment as a butterfly lands gently on his finger. He muses about the simple joys of being outdoors, completely unaware of the storm heading his way. His tranquility is shattered as their massive truck barrels towards his location, interrupting his quiet day. The supervisor is left stunned as the chaotic duo sprints past him with frantic urgency. Inside the next dungeon, an army of skeletons with glowing eyes awaits its new challenger. Unfazed, Seo-jun grips his weapon, promising a swift and decisive end to the undead horde. He unleashes a devastating whirlwind attack, instantly shattering the entire skeletal army. Just as quickly, he emerges from the dungeon, leaving the subdued monsters for Manchul to handle. The supervisor watches in disbelief as Manchul, noting the high quality of the bones, begins dismantling with terrifying speed. The poor official can only stare as Manchul processes the monsters with inhuman efficiency, one after another. Before the official can even process what happened, the job is done and the pair is already rushing to their next destination. He's left completely dumbfounded, watching their truck disappear down the road in a cloud of dust. Meanwhile, at the next site, a different official enjoys a peaceful moment, completely oblivious to the approaching chaos. The scene shifts to the dungeon management team headquarters, where a supervisor is checking on the day's progress. An assistant manager confirms the contest report is complete and ready for review. The team leader casually picks up the folder, expecting a routine update on the first day's results. He notes an impressive score of 16 dungeons for a cadet named Lee So-yeon, assuming she's the clear frontrunner. But as he flips the page, he's surprised to see her name listed in second place. Completely baffled, he wonders who could have possibly beaten such a high score. His eyes widen in disbelief as he sees the first place entry, Kim Seo-jun, with an impossible score of 32. The team leader frantically calls over his subordinate, waving the report in the air. He demands to know if the numbers are a mistake, convinced that clearing 32 dungeons in a single day is impossible. The assistant confirms he already verified the shocking numbers, leaving his boss to grapple with the unbelievable truth. The assistant reports that Seo-jun's pathing was flawless, and he cleared each dungeon in an impossible 10 minutes. The baffled leader questions if Seo-jun is even a cadet, but his subordinate confirms no rules were broken. The leader demands to know his academy, learning it's an obscure place called Dream Academy. The assistant suddenly connects the dots, realizing Dream Academy is the one run by the Sword Saint's granddaughter. The two men fall silent, the connection to the legendary Sword Saint changing everything. The leader nervously speculates if the Sword Saint himself was involved, sending his subordinate scrambling for answers. The scene cuts to a blunt notification, informing the second-place winner of her failure. The runner-up, Lee So-yeon of East Academy, stands stoically and apologizes for her performance. She is harshly reprimanded by her superior, who states that her failure has damaged the Academy's prestige. The superior then asks if she truly believes the winner's score of 32 dungeons is even achievable. Lee So-yeon internally calculates that even if Seo-jun finished each raid in 10 minutes, the travel time between locations would make clearing 32 dungeons an impossible feat. Her superior speculates that such a score is only achievable if the contestant received illegal assistance. He dismisses his daughter, assuring her he will handle the situation, clearly seeing this as an opportunity. The headmaster Lee Sukman smirks, revealing his intention to bend the rules to his advantage. He lectures her on his philosophy, stating that in this world, everyone is simply chasing their own benefits. So-yeon listens with a grim expression as her father insists that the process never matters, only the final result. He suddenly asks if she's still thinking about someone named Jinsu, but she firmly denies it. Her father dismisses the idea, confident she wouldn't be foolish enough to repeat a past mistake. Left alone, So-yeon's expression hardens, her resolve steeled by her father's ruthless worldview. A memory surfaces of a young man telling So-yeon that a true hunter needs an unshakable conviction. She had dismissed his idealism, but he vowed to become a hero who could inspire others. So-yeon had pleaded with him to stop talking like that, feigning annoyance at his noble aspirations. She worried about being embarrassed if others mocked his naive dreams while he looked on, hurt. Back in the present, she coldly recalls finding his beliefs incredibly embarrassing. The memory of his hopeful face flashes through her mind, a stark contrast to her current cynicism. Her expression hardens as she silently tells the memory of the dead man to stop haunting her. With renewed, cold determination, she clenches her fists and walks away from the past. The scene shifts to Seo-jun, who stretches under a streetlight, complaining about his aching body. He shares a drink with an exhausted Manchul, teasing him for complaining about their week-long grind. Manchul gripes about the mental gymnastics of route planning, but Seo-jun dangles their earnings as motivation. Seo-jun calculates their net profit from the monster parts, landing on a cool $7,800. He suggests an even split, leaving Manchul speechless at the prospect of earning nearly $4,000. Manchul firmly rejects the offer, arguing that Seo-jun's hard work deserves a 70-30 split in his favor. He issues an ultimatum, threatening to quit if Seo-jun doesn't accept, forcing the boy to agree to the new terms. Seo-jun prepares the transfer, but generously rounds up Manchul's share to an even $2,500. Confused by the extra cash, Manchul is told to just accept it as a thank you and gas money for his troubles. The veteran driver silently accepts, clearly moved by the young cadet's unexpected generosity. Seo-jun then asks if Manchul was surprised by his incredible performance, but the older man seems completely unfazed. Manchul casually reveals he already witnessed Seo-jun's skills at the academy tournament, leaving the cadet completely stunned. Seo-jun explains he avoided contacting Manchul to prevent putting any unnecessary pressure on him. He recalls how Manchul, despite his rough exterior, was a silent pillar of support after his parents passed away. Seo-jun jokingly suggests Manchul start an exclusive delivery service for him, an idea the veteran driver quickly dismisses. The two share a quiet moment of gratitude on a park bench before continuing their grind. On the second day, a new supervisor greets them, referring to the pair as the rumored dungeon dismantlers. The official explains their reputation for not just clearing, but completely stripping dungeons has spread among the staff. After confirming they've broken no rules, the supervisor simply tells them to carry on with their bizarre operation. The contest leaderboard flashes on screen, showing Seo-jun with a staggering lead of 73 dungeons cleared. Seo-jun confidently declares victory is certain, while an exhausted Manchul agrees their brutal pace should guarantee it. He tries to rally his partner for the final 5 days, but Manchul can only lament the boy's complete disregard for rest. Seo-jun promises a celebratory meal, even offering to treat Manchul's daughter, Soo-yeon. The two share a laugh as Manchul jokingly threatens to order an entire cow for his reward. Seo-jun feels a surge of confidence looking at their progress, while Manchul playfully ups his demands. He's certain that if they maintain this pace, the prize money is as good as theirs. On the third day, however, Manchul looks at his phone with a concerned expression, catching Seo-jun's attention. Seo-jun asks what's wrong, and Manchul grimly shows him the screen. The young cadet's confident expression shatters as he sees the unexpected problem on the phone. He stares in disbelief at the contest map, where every single nearby dungeon is already reserved. Seo-jun realizes with mounting frustration that their strategy has hit a massive, unforeseen roadblock. To make matters worse, the closest available dungeon is a full hour's drive away, completely ruining their efficient schedule. Seo-jun analyzes the map, realizing the pattern of reserved dungeons around them is far too deliberate to be a coincidence. Manchul grumbles about their rivals' blatant interference, but Seo-jun decides to head to the nearest available dungeon to confirm their suspicions. Their frustration mounts as they find every subsequent dungeon they drive to is also mysteriously reserved just before they arrive. The sabotage severely impacts their progress, with Seo-jun only clearing 10 dungeons for the day, allowing his rival to close the gap. Back at the academy, Seo-jun stares at his phone, convinced that there's a coordinated effort to sabotage him. So-yoon confirms his suspicions, identifying the second-place contestant as the culprit and vowing to protest to the organizers. Seo-jun grimly considers the situation, knowing that despite his current lead, the competition is far from over. He realizes with dawning dread that if this interference continues, he will inevitably lose his first-place position. Deciding to change tactics, Seo-jun tells Manchul they must abandon their profitable dismantling to focus solely on speed. While Manchul worries about the logistical nightmare of their rival's strategy, Seo-jun quietly schemes, searching for a way to turn the tables. Seo-jun turns to his confused allies, revealing he's come up with a counter-strategy. With a confident smirk, he raises a finger, ready to explain his brilliant new plan. Elsewhere, a large group of rival cadets loiters in a park, waiting for their orders. Their leader reminds them of the plan, to box Seo-jun in by reserving every dungeon around him. As they casually discuss Seo-jun's impossible speed, their leader suddenly gets an alert. He shouts that Seo-jun has made a reservation, and the entire group springs into action. The cadets quickly coordinate, smugly preparing to execute the same sabotage as the day before. But their confidence evaporates as one of them stares at his phone in utter confusion. They realize Seo-jun has reserved a dungeon right next to the one their own leader, Lee So-yeon, is currently in. The team leader snatches the phone, desperate to understand Seo-jun's unexpected and disruptive move. The cadets discuss the rules, revealing that once a dungeon is reserved, it's locked for 10 hours, trapping everyone. The team leader's hand shakes as the devastating flaw in their strategy becomes terrifyingly clear. Meanwhile, inside her own dungeon, Lee So-yeon effortlessly dispatches a monster with a single elegant strike. She emerges from the raid victorious, completely unaware of the trap being sprung around her. Outside, her personal driver waits patiently, ready to whisk her away to the next target. So-yeon gets in the car, announcing she's finished, leaving her driver stunned by her 15-minute clear time. The driver is momentarily speechless, struggling to comprehend her incredible speed. She impatiently urges him to get moving, eager to continue her hunt and close the gap with Seo-jun. But he delivers the bad news. Every single dungeon in the vicinity has been reserved, leaving them completely stranded. The leaderboard flashes, showing Seo-jun's score soaring as So-yeon realizes she's been perfectly outplayed and baited into a trap. So-yeon realizes Seo-jun is intentionally boxing her in, creating a mutually destructive stalemate on the map. She reports to her father, who scoffs, admitting he underestimated how quickly Seo-jun would retaliate. The headmaster assures his daughter he has another plan, telling her to simply follow his lead. On the 5th day of the contest, So-yeon is suddenly confronted by an unfamiliar voice. Seo-jun and Manchul appear, with Seo-jun cheekily introducing them as fellow victims of the competition's chaos. An official intervenes, warning them against fighting, but Seo-jun clarifies he's just there for the dungeon he reserved. So-yeon sizes him up, calmly asking if he is the infamous Kim Seo-jun. He returns the question with a friendly smile, confirming his identity. Seo-jun suggests they compete fairly, reminding her of the contest's noble purpose. She coolly challenges his insinuation, prompting him to nervously laugh off the accusation. Seo-jun turns his back on her, walking away with a confident stride. He scoffs at her talk of good intentions, dismissing the very concept as he departs. So-yeon finds his naive idealism utterly laughable, a bitter smile on her face. She internally declares that good intentions are a fantasy that cannot exist in their world. In her cynical view, humans are selfish creatures who only act when there's something to gain. She tightens her grip on her sword, believing that justice and equality are illusions in the pursuit of self-interest. With cold resolve, she enters her own dungeon, ready to dispatch the monsters waiting inside. She emerges from the portal with incredible speed, leaving the contest official completely amazed. So-yeon's expression remains cold and focused, unimpressed by the official's awe. She watches the chaotic spectacle of Seo-jun and Manchul's operation, utterly unfazed by their ridiculous methods. Seo-jun approaches So-yeon with a monster corpse slung over his shoulder, surprised by her quick raid time. He then cheekily asks if he can have the monster corpses she's leaving behind, his eyes gleaming with greed. She dismissively agrees, and Seojun celebrates his small victory as she turns away. So-yeon is left completely baffled as he begins counting out loud with glee. He proceeds to haul multiple monster corpses out of her dungeon, much to her stunned disbelief. She finally confronts him, demanding to know why he's going to such ridiculous lengths. He cheerfully explains it's all for the money, a reason that only reinforces her cynical worldview. Deciding she's wasted enough time, So-yeon turns her back on the bizarre scene and walks away. Her thoughts drift back to the idealistic boy, confirming her belief that hunters with good intentions don't exist. She walks away with cold finality, convinced that being a hunter is nothing more than a job. The scene cuts to the Sword Saint unleashing a powerful glowing slash inside a dungeon. He grips his sword, recalling Kalia's assurance that this was only a 6-star dungeon. But before him lies a defeated 13-star Drake, a creature that should never have been there. Kalia suggests a distortion is to blame, but the master angrily accuses the Order of Truth of scheming. His suspicion grows, comparing this incident to a treacherous event from 30 years prior. Kalia swears on her order's name they are innocent, but their argument is suddenly interrupted. A mysterious young woman appears, telling them to stop bickering and asking about the missing magic saint. This is Young Jimin, the magic saint's apprentice, who explains her master is absent due to poor health. The Sword Saint bristles at being called Gramps, but she cheekily fires back about his own unchanged attitude. The group observes the fallen Drake, which now radiates a strange purple aura, confirming the situation is far from normal. Jimin questions the Sword Saint about the fight, but he arrogantly dismisses the monster, earning a sharp rebuke. The master denies it's a distortion, but Kalia warns this is a serious phenomenon not seen since a historic catastrophe. Jimin thoughtfully considers the risk, admitting that while the probability of it reoccurring is low, it's not impossible. She declares they must investigate further, uniting the powerful trio against the looming threat. As her voiceover calls for a check on all low-ranked dungeons, 2 officials observe a rare, linked dungeon gate. Their concern is dwarfed by an unprecedented sight. 3 separate portals have converged in the middle of the city. The official confirms this is a historic first, as the 3 dungeons have inexplicably linked, creating an unknown danger.